Hello, 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 everyone. My name is Jay Johnson. I'm a global business consultant out here in the Clearwater, Florida area, and we have a phenomenal panel that's going to come to you. They are professionals in what they do, and we're going to discuss some mental health issues. Okay, we're going to have a mental health roundtable today, and we have some phenomenal experts at the table. So what we're going to do here to get started, we're going to actually go around the table and say what your name is, what you do, and if you knew me well. So I'm going to start with Miss Beth. Miss Beth, are you there? Can you unmute your line for a second, please, Miss Beth?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay, fine. This is Beth L. Casey, and I am a mental health awareness advocate and a facilitator for NAMI in Tarrant County, Texas. I am the creator of Made You Smile Back, and I try to do my part in removing the stigma of mental illness every single day. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing, Miss Beth. We also have Miss Patrice over there. Miss Patrice, go ahead and let people know who you are, and if you knew me well. We're going to say that as well.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Patrice Brantley. I am the seed sowing sister, and my goal in life is to talk about teacher mental health. And I want to talk about ways that we can help heal people and take away the stigma for mental health, and talk about some holistic ways you can help your mental health. If you knew me well, you would know that I love to sing, I love to share, and I love to talk about mental health.
Awesome. So we're going to have a solo today. Awesome.
Oh,
no. All right. Well, we have another phenomenal leader out there, Miss Linda Miller. Go ahead and let us know who you are, and if you knew me well as well.
Hi, how are you? I'm Linda Miller. I'm from Paterson, New Jersey. I'm a speech therapist by day. I'm the owner of Happy Reading LLC. In my company, what we do is work on ways to holistically help you become well using reading as a main tool in the strategies. And if you knew me well, you know that you will find me curled up with a book or dancing with or without music.
Nice. So we see you dancing. It's not a mental issue. It is you just love to dance. All right, with or without music. Okay, all right. Gotcha. Okay, we have another phenomenal expert, Dr. Atoya. Please go ahead and open up with who you are and if you knew me well as well, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Atoya Hodges, and I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I am a hypnotherapist in addition to an intuitive and energy healer, and a psychosomatic practitioner. So I understand how your emotions, behaviors, and traumas are relate and how it creates a sickness within your body. And if you knew me well, you would know that I love to dance and help people.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing. Appreciate that. Awesome. We actually have Mr. Brandon Smith. Mr. Brandon Smith, you're on the hot seat. Go ahead and let us know who you are, and if you knew me well, please, sir.
Hey, I'm Brandon, and I'm in Fort Worth, Texas. So right, and also in Tarrant County with you, Beth. Yeah, if you knew me well, you would know that I love to learn, and I have a really big heart.
Excellent. So glad you're here. Good to see you, man. And we also have Miss Sonia. Miss Sonia Pickett, please come to the mic for a second, please. Look like you just got off a cruise or something. What's up with that?
Because I did. And it was glorious. Hello, everyone. My name is Sonia Pickett. I am the proud owner and CEO of Sonia Renee Enterprises. I am a certified mental health life coach and advocate through Greenheart University. And if you knew me well, you would know that I love to nap and I love to travel. Now, combining two of those together, we have heaven on earth.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, welcome back, Miss Sonia. Appreciate that as well. We also have Miss Haley. Miss Haley, come on to the mic for a second and let us know who you are and if you knew me well, please.
Hey everybody, I am Haley Gray. I'm out of Raleigh, North Carolina, and I am actually a digital marketer by training. I am also a mom of a child with severe persistent mental illness. And I am here representing families who deal with this on a daily basis. If you knew me well, you would know that I am a total pushover for all critters. And I have my own very personal petting zoo, including a puppy who is pretty sure she's a kangaroo.
Nice. Hopefully we'll be able to see your kangaroo puppy in a second here.
We'll see if she decides to make an appearance.
Excellent, excellent, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And we also have Miss Kate. Please, Miss Kate, if you come to the line and let us know who you are and if you knew me well.
Sure, I'm Kate Kunkel. I'm a nutritionist, sound therapist, and Amen trained brain health professional. That means I look at the brain first to help people overcome mental illness and to stay healthy. So, and I'm here to dispel the myths of mental illness because we know that it's not just in your mind, it's in your brain. If you knew me well, you'd know I'm a crazy cat lady who's also a harpist.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. We have a cat and a dog that's going to be displayed today. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Miss Beth, I want to come back to you because we did not get the "if you knew me well" from you, please. So if we knew you well, what might we know? Miss Beth, can you unmute your mic for us? Thank you.
If you knew me well, you would know that I do daily Facebook Lives. And one time I actually did, I'm a balloon artist and did animal balloons. So I like to entertain a little bit, and I just really like to see smiles on everybody. So I think I'm pretty empathetic, actually.
That is awesome. I'm looking forward to getting my balloon character from you as well. So I do whatever it takes to get my piece, right? I need some balloon characters. All right. So Miss Haley, she says, okay. Miss Haley is okay. I'm reading the chat right there. Excellent. Miss Miriam, welcome to the call, Miss Miriam. Can you unmute your microphone for a second? What we're doing is we're actually introducing ourselves, say who you are, what you do, and if you knew me well. Miss Miriam, go ahead and take it away, sweetheart. Okay, we cannot hear you, Miss Miriam. Can you unmute? Okay, you're muted now. Okay, there's microphone issues with you right there. I'm pretty sure you can hear us, but we cannot hear you at the moment. So we're going to give you a second to get that together and see if Miss Lola is Lola B. Morgan. Can you come to the microphone for a second, Miss Lola?
Hello, how are you?
I am phenomenal and getting better. The day is young. So I wanted to make sure that you were actually introduced as well. What we're doing is we're introducing ourselves and letting people know who we are, what we do, and if you knew me well. So what might we know about Miss Lola? Who are you? What do you do? And what might we know about you, Miss Lola?
Of course. Thank you so much for the introduction. Well, as you know, my name is Lola B. Morgan, and I am the founder of A Griot's Corner, LLC, where we guide communities to emotional and mental freedom. I am a certified life coach in the process of becoming a certified peer recovery specialist. And I'm an author, a huge advocate, for those who have suffered trauma or having challenges in life and looking to seek help and support along the way.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're so glad you're here. Welcome to the round table.
Thank you.
And we're looking forward to hearing a little bit more from you as well. Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, Miss Miriam, do you have your microphone up? Let's try this one more again. We still cannot hear you. She's still doing the Chinese lips moving thing. Okay, that's all right. We have Mr. Brandon that came on the line. Brandon Smith, welcome to the party, man. Welcome to the Mental Health Roundtable. And what we're doing is we're introducing ourselves before we get into the meat. So Brandon, if you can unmute your microphone, I want to make sure that we can hear you. We would like for you to let us know who you are, what you do, and if you knew me well. Mr. Brandon.
I was one in Dallas Fort Worth. So yeah, I already introduced myself, but then I turned my camera off. So I'll be back on camera in just a moment. So no worries.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we have Miss Cindy Charles. Miss Cindy Charles, you're out there. Welcome to the line. We're glad you made it. Welcome to the Mental Health Roundtable. And if you can unmute your line for us for a second, we can go ahead and introduce you too. Miss Cindy, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning. My name is Cindy Charles. I am a co-worker of one of your panelists, Miss Linda Miller, who invited me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask you one more question. If you knew me well, can you answer that question? If you knew me well, what might we know about you?
If you knew me well, I am a caring, compassionate woman whose profession states as a registered nurse, That's part of my personality. Always caring and willing to help.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I thought you was going to give us some dirt, so I may have to ask Linda for all the dirt on your life and everything. No, just kidding. Just kidding. All right. I believe, let me see if Miss Myrtha can come back to the line, because Miss Myrtha is the one who actually brought us all together. And you know what? She actually have a heart of gold. This young lady, I tell you, she is an inspirational speaker, worldwide speaker, as a matter of fact. She is an international best-selling author multiple times. She is a humbled mother as well. And you know what? She actually have been there, done that when it comes to strategic planning, when it comes to corporate business, when it comes to creating your own business and creating a lot of success. She pulled a lot of great people together, as you can see, that is here to actually help those who are actually in need of help when it comes to mental health. That's why we have this Mental Health Roundtable. So please give a round of applause to Miss Myrtha Dubois. Come to the stage, please.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I believe I hit everyone that I was supposed to hit with the text. So we should be seeing a few pop-ups. Great morning, everyone. Bonjour. I love these beautiful faces. I am going to take a quick picture. So Brandon, I know you said you had to step out, but if you can come back on, or as soon as he comes back on, we'll just say cheese, or actually we'll say roundtable. And Lola and Cindy, I'll just call you out for just a second, just enough time for me to hit the button. All right. So right now we're gonna go ahead and, oh, Brandon is on. All right. Lola and Cindy, can you pop on for a quick second or two? Technology is not my friend this morning, so I make no promises.
If I can just have 1 minute.
1 minute, okay. And Cindy?
Unfortunately, I cannot. I am not ready yet.
I understand. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and snap the picture. Lola, do you want to come on, or do you want me to just snap the picture right now? I'd like to see your face.
I'm in the same boat with Cindy, but I appreciate you.
All right, everybody just smile. Beautiful. I believe I have it. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to absolutely take a moment of silence for those who have given their lives. But it's not just about, Memorial Day is really about sacrifice to me. Those who have sacrificed, because although we have the military going out, what they leave behind are their families, their children, their spouses, and that's a sacrifice. That's a huge sacrifice. But also Memorial Day, I wish for us here sitting on this panel to take a moment and think of the things that we have sacrificed. Yes, you, each and every one of you. What have you sacrificed? Or maybe acknowledge someone who has sacrificed for you. So let's take a moment in remembrance of those who sacrificed. Awesome. Thank you so very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for a brief moment. But for the most part of our conversation today, it will be just that. Definitely don't want to have the presentation in the way. It is a beautiful day. Does anybody else have something going on after the event?
A nap.
Just about to say that.
I don't even have to look. I know who that is.
A nap.
Yes, Linda, napping. Yes.
Oh, Brandon said family barbecue. Brandon, are you the one who's in charge of the barbecue?
I did some of the help with the cooking yesterday, but no, my mom's actually in charge. So.
Just like get out the kitchen, right? Mom's in charge.
Now, is this a proper Texas barbecue?
Oh, absolutely. We're
okay, wait, what's a proper Texas barbecue?
Well, I mean, like the best meat. It's the right way. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, Brandon, I'm coming down.
I'm only 10 minutes away. I'm on the way, man.
Ooh,
As,
bigger the
You
better.
can't beat a good Texas barbecue.
as soon as we're done here, look, we're all booking a flight or something before it gets dark. All right, well, officially, we'd like to welcome each and every one of you for taking a moment out of your day to be here and to have this conversation that is so much needed. And so I would like to acknowledge our sponsors who are here today. Please take a look at the screen. These are the people, the individuals who made this today happen. So thank you, thank you, thank you from all corners of my heart, if it had any corners. And I know Mr. J. Johnson shared a little bit about me today, but I just want to share with you a little bit more. I am a certified personal life strategist, and I am passionately dedicated to educating, elevating, and empowering women. Now, I say women, not that I'm anti-men, but these are those who, like me, like myself, who have felt the overwhelmed, who lack the clarity, because everyone's looking up to you. And sometimes we don't have the answers, but we make it happen nonetheless. And for those who are asking themselves after the family is gone, after the husband, the business, everything's done, what is next for me? That is my passion, to help women answer that question. And I use a method called CPR to zap, that's right, I zap the breath of life back into the woman so that they can reaffirm their identity, rebuild their confidence, and redeem their worth, making them absolutely undeniable. I am also a best-selling author, international best-selling author, I must say. In the past 2 years, I have ushered 13 co-authors to be international best-selling authors as well. My mission, and the reason why, one of the reasons why we're here, is because I wish to break unhealthy mental, spiritual, and financial habits. No, it's not a curse, because we can take charge. If it's a curse, that means we have no charge, we have no control. So it is not a curse, it is a habit that we have to break so that we can lead our communities, develop more effective practices that will lead us to building stronger communities, have more meaningful relationships, and prepare us to not only leave a legacy, but to live a legacy, and also lead by example. So one of the individuals in my life who, and I'm going to go off screen here for a moment, and I'll just jump back on because I want to talk to you. So imagine an 11-year-old girl waking up to the sound of voices all throughout the house in the wee hours of the morning. She gets up, still rubbing her eyes. She steps out of her bed, walk out of her room. And as she walks closer and closer to the sound of the voices, she notices that all the lights, everywhere that she turned, they were all on. As she gets to the actual room where the voices were coming from, she stops in the doorway and she looks around, and she can see her mom. She can see her mom visibly upset. She sees her dad, who 3 years prior had walked out on the family, but today, that early morning, he was there. She can see her sister. She can see a couple of family friends in that same room. And then she notices her brother pacing back and forth, but away from the family. She sits down right in the doorway because now she doesn't want to go in. She wants to take a moment to figure out what's going on in that room. What did she miss from the night before that's taking place now? And then she hears, we got to take him to the hospital. That was the voice of her father. In that same instant, excuse me, her brother runs and hides behind her in the doorway. And he whispers, please don't let them take me. And she turns, and with her 11-year-old voice and her 11-year-old innocence, says, I won't. And he whispers back, you are my angel. Save me. Ooh, that was my brother. That's my story of how mental health became so important to me. Years and years and years into this cycle. What is mental illness? What is it? And why does it have an effect on every single person? It affects our communities. It affects our families. It affects our home. It affects our friendships. It affects everyone. Everyone. No one is immune. So I open up. Please unmute and share with me. What is this mental illness? How do you define mental illness?
Yes, I go first. My simple definition of what mental illness is would be a disruption or disturbance between healthy, fruitful living on the mental, emotional, and social level. Yeah, I think that's how I would define it. And as you stated, it is a disruption or interruption that affects the entire being of a person and those that they are in relationship with or those that they may come in contact with.
For me, I think part of it's the not having the knowledge of what mental health is. We assume when we see someone unfortunately shoot up a school that those are the only people that have mental health illness or sicknesses. But all of us have it, but we've been taught our entire life that this is normal. You know, we grow up in a home where there's nothing but chaos and addictions or, you know, all of these things that are going on, and we as children are absorbing it, and we're using that as our footprint of how we live our life, not realizing that that is part of not having good mental health, because we're not taught that. We're not taught to speak. We're not taught to express our emotions. As children, we're told to be quiet, stop crying, there's nothing wrong with us. And that beats us down for even feeling comfortable to come out and say what is really going on. And so for all these years, we just keep letting all this stuff pile up until we have nowhere else left to go but to explode. And then that's when we're told, well, you have an issue that you need to work on. And by that point, it's already past, You know, it's at a place where it's just, it's now a fire versus just a little bit of smoke coming up. We are not taught how to put in the smoke detectors. We're taught to be firemen all along. And I think that's the importance of us having these roundtables, is to explain to individuals what that looks like, what you can do to help overcome some of these mental health issues that come up on a daily basis, and how to navigate through it.
Very well said. I think as far as our mental illness is concerned, to me, is we have a tendency to take a look at when we're kids. I used to play a lot of sports, and I've seen a lot of injuries, right? Someone broke their leg, their finger, their arm, or something like that, or whatever, but no one really taking consideration that your brain can be broken at times. You know, no one can take into consideration that your brain can be injured at times. And one of the things that I've learned over the past is that sometimes it's kind of like the brain is just not functioning. A certain portion of the brain is not functioning at that moment. It's not saying that it's not ever going to function, but it's just not at that moment. And you know what, that has a lot of the psychological effects on the outcome. So where people with a mental illness is concerned, so to speak, a lot of times they actually seeing scenes in their head, and they're acting it out in the natural and the physical, but they don't really know which one is the reality. And a lot of times we take a look at them and saying, well, hey, you know what, you need drugs and things of that nature. So a mental illness to me is more so of a temporary illness in the brain that causes the body to respond.
I'd like to address that as a brain health trainer. We can see by looking at SPECT scans that people who have less blood flow and oxygen going to various parts of the brain, those parts of the brain don't work properly. That could be from a TBI, that could be from malnutrition, it could be from toxins, it can be from so many things. To me, the basis of most mental illness, not all, most, is actually in the physical brain because of events either in utero or during life that have caused issues with those parts of the brain. I believe that if we can reduce the stigma by showing people that this is something in the brain, we'll have much more success getting people to go for treatment, to even look, to see what's going on. Then we can look at the brain and say, hey, that's where the problem is. It's in the hippocampus. You're not remembering things. Or it's in the frontal lobes. That's why you can't make good decisions. So we have to, I believe that mental illness we have to look there to start. And then we can figure out why those things happened in the brain. And once we can figure out that, we have a much bigger chance of making mental health.
I want to jump in with you. I love how you broke that down, Miss Kate. When I think of mental illness, I think of it as an invisible wound that may have started anywhere, like you said, from utero up. And I think for so many of us, because we've had this mindset, and I'll speak just for me, we've all grew up with the tagline at some point, you know, what happens in this house stays in this house. And that's the tagline for trauma, for abuse, for drama, that later looks there and turns into bigger issues, which are later labeled as mental health. I think if we get to the point where we teach, as Dr. Otoya said earlier, teach children how to express what they feel and what it really is, then we can really take on this so-called monster, which is not a monster, honestly. I'm gonna give you the visual that one of my clients gave me. He said, the world sees a monster, but I see a little boy reaching out for a friend. And that to me was such a powerful statement, because everybody else saw the monster and all he kept saying was, but I just want you to hear me. I want you to understand me. And that's what it is when we talk about mental health. It's for us to really reach out to that person who may not know how to reach out, but they're truly reaching out for a friend.
For me, mental illness, who's going? Beth, you want to go?
No, Linda, you're there.
Okay, for me, mental illness is like mind, body, and spirit all out of alignment with each other. And sometimes you can try to figure out how to address it and identify what it actually is, because sometimes you have a feeling that is like something's wrong and you just don't know what it is. And sometimes you can find it out and find strategies to get back into alignment, but then sometimes it's bigger than you. And you have to find that way to reach out to someone who has more skill set than you to help out with understanding what it is you're going through and being able to acknowledge it. So for me, it is invisible as well, that, you know, mind, body, and spirit is just not working and operating correctly. And some people is just more extreme than the others.
May I start? You know, Kate, I really like the way that you said that about that it is a physical illness in the way of how the brain works. What I think that a lot of people, the entire world, I really do think is totally in denial, because mental illness is the same as physical illness, and we all have it. We really do. We have mental fitness to worry about, but in our lifetimes, no one's going to deny the fact that we've all suffered depression. No one's going to deny the fact that they have felt sadness and grief and anxiety. And I think for those people who don't think they ever have mental illness, they're lying to themselves. And once they realize that, then they can embrace those that are experiencing acute mental illness. And I think that is another aspect that we need to get across to the public, that if you feel like that nobody else has it, you're wrong. Every single family in this entire United States has some form of dysfunction, whether they want to admit it or not. And I think having roundtables of this nature and to freely and openly talk about it is so vital to our communities.
I grew up in a home where my mother was completely untreated, unacknowledged that she had, I think she was bipolar. I'm guessing that's what the diagnosis would be these days. It put all of us in a terrible state all the time because we didn't know what was going to be next. She ultimately died with dementia because we know that mental illness is a risk factor for dementia. But I believe you're right, Beth, that most people, probably 95% of people, grow up in spaces where that kind of thing is hidden and not talked about. And God forbid anybody outside the family should know of this terrible secret. And nowadays, with this whole thing about pre-existing conditions, that's another layer of obstruction to getting treatment. Because if you're labeled mentally ill in any way, you have less chance of getting a job, you have less chance of getting insurance. So I think you're right, Beth. We have and Myrtha, we have to get this out to the world to say, we're all dealing with this, and it is in our head. The great news about that is that we can treat it. We don't have to have people drugged all the time. There are so many ways we can treat it. Yeah, sorry, on my soapbox.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, this is the space for it. Please share your stories. You know,
it's crazy. I've been dealing a lot of my clients. They have been watching the Johnny Depp and Amanda, I don't even know her name. I haven't watched it, but I just hear a lot of them keep talking. And they're telling me things that they started to observe by listening to them talk about childhood trauma and how they're identifying things that they're hearing and how it relates to them. And they never even realized that that was something that was going on. And I think a lot of what we're all talking about here, it's just the education of what all of this looks like that is not really being put on the forefront because it scares people. And it also goes against a lot of religious faiths that you talk about these things. So it's like you got all of these layers that no one wants to talk about because we're scared of what judgment and how others are going to perceive us. So that prevents us from getting the help and the understanding and the knowledge that we truly, truly need. And it takes people like us and individuals like them that are like, okay, I'm taking it all off. Like, I'm being vulnerable because I know how detrimental this is to my mind, body, and soul. And I want to see a difference in my life.
What I will say for the religious set, we were not equipped. So you have to remember, for years, everything was demonized and it looked a certain way. But now that how they say, you know better, you do better. Now we know better. We have people who are in the walls, in the church, and going out into the community saying, I want to be that hand for you. I want to be that ear. I want to walk you through. Now it's time to say to that person, instead of me shunning you, let me give you a hand to help you. And so a lot of that is how a lot of us were raised. If you didn't know and everybody shunned you, that was the way you took it. So now, like you said, now going into it and being a hand in the community and saying, yes, I want to help you. As I tell my clients daily, you can have Jesus and have your meds. You can have Jesus and have a therapist. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's a powerful connection. That's a powerful concoction, if you ask me. I grew up heavily in the church, and so I definitely understand where you're coming from. I know what was taught to myself and my siblings, and I know what I dealt with along with my husband and my child's father when we were confronted with it head on. Our oldest daughter, 19 years old, when she was 14, began having, and is it okay if I share this now, or?
Please.
Okay. Going through adolescence and puberty. So she began to demonstrate this behavior that was definitely atypical of who she was or who she is. So initially we figured that it was just, she's going through the teenage years, and my goodness, we made it this far with her being just a stellar student, a stellar individual. She has a beautiful heart, beautiful soul. So it was like, all right, we wasn't prepared for this, but let's go. And it just began to get progressively worse. And it came to a point in time when I found myself looking at her in the face, and I didn't recognize her. I'm not going to get emotional. I didn't recognize her. I'm like, who are you? Who is this? Where's my baby? So we had gone through so many different changes. She suicidal attempts, suicidal ideation, self-harm, just reckless behavior. She wasn't eating. And the crazy part about it is, much to my dismay, that I'm probably still trying to work through it, with the overwhelming sense of guilt, because all of this was happening right in front of my eyes, and I didn't know how to identify it. I didn't know what was going on. And because we were so heavily entrenched in church, and my husband at the time was a minister, so we were, we pray, you're gonna pray for her, you fast, which is turn down your plate, doing all of the spiritual things or whatever to break the principality and all that good stuff. And there's some truth to that too, but we were missing the fact that our baby was hurting. We were totally missing the fact that her soul was crying out. We were totally oblivious of the things that she had been dealing with. What triggered all of this, what we figured out, or through counseling, because she had been Baker acted like 5 times, sent to 2 different mental facilities, or temporary mental critical care, the ones that, to bring them down from a crisis. Therapy, nothing was working. It was when she finally spiraled out of control and caused a big disruption in school that, by the grace of God, there was one of the top mental facilities here in Central Florida actually happened to have an opening there. It's called La Amistad. And within this facility, it was the scariest moment, the most emotional moment. It's like, what is going on, God? Why can't you just heal her? Because this is what we're taught. You pray, and God can heal. Jesus is the answer, and he is. He absolutely is. And he's also the answer through the means that have been set up and erected in our society, through doctors, through medicine, through individuals, through therapists, through all of that. So once she was admitted there, she was assigned, as with all of the other teens there, her own doctor, psychiatrist, nurse, dietitian, therapist, as well as, I'm forgetting one, a school counselor, because she went to school there. With that team being in place, they were able to monitor her, and they were able to provide us with what was going on with our baby. what was going on and how it actually happened. She ended up being diagnosed with bipolar 2, borderline personality disorder. I think it was the cluster B, borderline personality disorder, and a mood disorder. And while we were going through these ups and downs and her being in and out of the hospital for being Baker acted, they always wanted to just throw medicine at her. Oh yeah, she's depressed, so let's get Zoloft. And we were like, no, we don't know what's going on. We're going to hold off on that. Let's try therapy. And again, it didn't get better. Each time we went back, they wanted to just throw medicine. And it wasn't per se, at least on my end, that I was against the medicine. I just didn't want my baby to be a guinea pig. So once we were able to get her into that facility, for the first time in my life, once the, I agree, I absolutely agree. Responding to Haley. Once we were in there and I felt at peace with the team that had been assigned to her, and it was like, okay, and they kept in contact with us, which was a beautiful thing. I would love for this model of La Amistad to be replicated all across the world because it was amazing. They kept in contact with us. It's like, okay, we gave her this amount and we're finding that this worked. So they were able to come up with a medicinal cocktail. I hated that term. I kind of still cringe when I hear it because I don't know. So she's on taking like 3 or 4 different medicines. And I remember signing that form and tears rolling down my face because on this side of me, the mom side of me, I want my baby to be better. I want her to have as much of a normal life process. I can't even imagine what it would feel like to be trapped inside of yourself, not being able to control your thoughts, being up all night, and just the things that she dealt with as a 14-year-old, as a 15-year-old. And so the mom side of me wanting her to have peace and wanting her to be okay. But then on this side of me, the heavy doctrine and the teaching, and I don't blame them, it's due to a lack of, it's due to ignorance, I suppose. But having that on my shoulders, like, well, this means that there's a lack of faith here, or this means that you did something wrong, or this means that it's sin if you were lived right, or if she did right. Just all of the condemnation. This is my personal experience. I'm not saying that it is yours, but just that dynamic of wanting what's best for your baby, wanting what's best for your loved one, but because of the way that you were groomed or taught, or even just the way that you understood it. Maybe it wasn't even taught to us that way, but of course it was. But just your understanding of it causes the clash, which if we weren't at our wits end, we probably would have prolonged the process of her getting the help and the services and the solution that she needed, all because it didn't come by us just laying hands on her and saying, in the name of Jesus. So I definitely understand that. I did a whole lot of talking, but I definitely understand it. That's why I am so passionate about breaking this stigma. If we can talk about it more, a lot more people will realize that I'm not the only one dealing with this. Okay, my way of thinking about this, not just a person that's affected by mental health illnesses or mental challenges or diagnosis, but also the caregivers, the support services. If we talk about this more, if we engage more, if we pull the cover off of it, then it won't be a stigma anymore. Then we'll be able to at least present the full platter of services and assistance there. And then people can have the choice as to whether or not they want to, partake of what's at the table. But if we can rip the covers off of it, rip the Band-Aid off, it's like, listen, this is something that affects all of us. This is something that is not going to go away. So us not talking about it or shunning people or trying to slap religious jargon and cliche on it is not going away, because this has always been with us. It's just we never had a language for it. We never had a language, never had the opportunity, we never had a space. Mental health, the whole umbrella of mental health, which comes up under it, the mental health, mental illnesses, mental challenges, mental diagnosis, it's not going anywhere because it's the core of who we are. We're all affected by it. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. I am classified as an introvert, don't speak much, but when you talk about this, I think I'll probably be the loudest person in the room, maybe not, but so I just love being a part of this. I'm so grateful to you, Myrtha, for presenting this platform, and we definitely have to do this again. Otherwise I'm gonna bug you a whole bunch. So thank you guys.
Just real quick. Oh, go ahead, Martha, sorry.
Oh, no, please, Dr. Otoya.
No, I was just piggybacking on what Sonia said. Like, that was one of the biggest things that happened in my life, is that every Sunday I was going to church, I was praying like, please help me, please help me. And then all of a sudden, all these signs started disappearing, but I wasn't seeing those as the answer. Like, I'm coming home every Sunday and all of my demons are standing in the door when I walk in, like, welcome back. Here's depression, here's anxiety, there's overachiever, here's all of these things that you've never dealt with that keep staying here. And that's what I think is happening, is when we are in church, we're not taught how to break those vicious cycles that we live in. You know, I prayed like, God, please, I need to slow down. I need rest. I'm working too much. I'm doing it. And then I got injured. And then instead of me looking at that as my time to rest, I got mad. I'm like, why would you do this to me? You already know I'm overwhelmed. Why would you now injure me to where I can't do the things that I need to do? Not looking at that as that was my downtime for the rest that I was praying for.
Yep. So
it's just kind of like what you're saying is we're praying over here, but we're not taught to look at the ways that we can get the help that we need.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
You're hitting exactly where I am and where I was. And I say this because, well, first I'm gonna go back. Miss Sonia, the program you spoke about, amazing. I've sent many people there, many children, because I know the level of work that they do. So when I tell you they're an amazing program, they are amazing.
They're expensive. That's a whole nother.
Oh, I know, but when I tell you they do the job, for me personally, if it could get every family whole, I would send them there.
Absolutely.
Because I've seen people who've been fighting, like we talked about, as Dr. Atoya talked about with the, when you come home, your quote unquote demons are still greeting you at the door. We don't teach that in the church. And I'm gonna be very honest with you. You know what's one that really hit me one day? I was reading about David. And I thought about, I said, you know what? I said, if you listen to David as he is in here in this word, and you listen to him, he is suffering with depression.
Yep.
Say, who else? I say, but this is the lie that we tell us. This is the lie that's been taught to us. I'm not gonna say we tell it to ourselves. This is the lie that we're taught. Oh, well, you're a believer. You're supposed to just go along with this, and you're never supposed to be sad and upset. And I'm like, no.
Look at David.
There are examples in the word. Look at Elijah. Look at that. You have people there. And I'm like, you can't get just upset and stay stuck in that place. There are people who are crying out who need this. You're not the only person. When I was going through this with my job, and that's a part of it too, because culturally you get these jobs, you're supposed to stay in them and love them.
Yep.
So the day you go, and what we don't understand is this is why we're having this great resignation now, because people were in these jobs, pushing hard, doing all they can do, and then some, and it wasn't fulfilling enough. And what we don't get is if we don't teach people how to identify, how to see what it looks like, and how to have what I call having grace with yourself.
Yes.
Then you're going to really have issues. And literally that's what it is for me. I burnt completely out. And for me, it was the stigma of who could I talk to? Because I'm at the job. I got the job I wanted. This is what I always wanted to do since a kid. But now that I'm here, who do I talk to? I can't get on meds because, depending on the job you got, they like to spot test you. So if you get on the meds, that's going to be an issue. So like you said, having these conversations and removing the stigma of it, amazing. I thank y'all for just giving me this moment. I appreciate you.
Yes. One of the things that they had me stuck for a while. I know, Patrice, you said, when we know about it, when we know better, we do better. And so for me, I took that statement, that comment, that quote, because when you think about it, we all know better. But you know what's missing? We don't have the support.
Right.
We don't have the proper tools. We don't have the right systems in place or people. So yes, the church, have you ever sat in a sermon? I don't know, it doesn't matter what religion you are, but have you ever sat in a church congregation and you hear a sermon, you hear someone preaching something, and a lot of times if it's bad, you're pointing the finger at everybody else but you. Now, when they tell you, claim this, oh yeah, hallelujah, you're claiming it. right? You want the money, you want the good life, you want all the good stuff. But when they say, yeah, they start talking about some things, you kind of remove yourself from that conversation. And so when people start talking about mental illness, we all done it. I did it at 11 years old. Like, what am I doing with this grown man? What is wrong with him? I was a teenager and couldn't have friends over. I was a teenager and couldn't stay out long enough because I became my brother's caretaker at the age of 11. And because back in the day, if you had parents like mine, what happens in your house stays in your house. Don't you dare tell people outside this house our business.
Yeah.
And so even with the church growing up, it's like, well, I need help. But if I tell the church, they're going to tell my parents. If I tell a leader, it's going to get back. So you start to hold things in. Now let's talk about what happens when you hold things in. Years and years not being able to talk about it, not even being to show a little bit, like your facial, right? Just like the good mornings. Good morning. And your morning is crap. The night before was even worse. But we walk through life with this fakeness, this fraudness, if that's a word, we're going to make it up today. We walk through life not wanting to share what we're really going through. I'm hurting, but no one can know about it. I'm sad, but no one can know about it. 11 years old. First of all, my brother was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was 24 years old. He had this illness until he passed away at 61 years old. I was his caregiver, his caretaker, all those years. But aside from just holding on to that, I want to just share with you what holding on actually looks like. Imagine walking into a grocery store, Publix, Kroger's, Walmart. And you know how the aisles, you go down the aisles, you're walking through? Who's seen the movie Bruce Almighty? Okay. So when I tell you that, you know how you pull that file cabinet and the file cabinet kept going and going and going?
Yeah.
And if you ever watched a cartoon, sometimes they show you the same, like things just keep going and without end. So imagine walking down an aisle and you look up and it just kept going. Shelves just kept going. All of a sudden, your heart starts racing. Boom, 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 boom. And you're shaking, out of control. You're just shaking. Everything starts to get blurry. You can't breathe, but you're breathing. You just want more air. You start to sweat. People come up to you, talking to you. You don't hear what they're saying, but you see their mouths moving. And you feel like you're just not there. It's like, oh my gosh, ever watch Fred Sampson? Hey, I'm coming, Elizabeth, because you feel like your life is about to end in that moment. You see, those are signs of panic attack. And when you hold enough in, and you can't let anything out, that's how it starts. For me, a few months later, my whole body shut down. Couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't eat. I can literally remember sitting on the bed with my children around me, my mom on the left-hand side of the bed, crying and praying. Don't let her die. Don't let her die, Lord. Don't let her die. So it started with my brother. Then he moved on to me. You see, there's a very thin line between the person who's ill and the caretaker. There's a very thin line between the caretaker and those who pretend not to even see or hear or experience. So by definition, if you will, mental illness affects our mood, our thought process, and our behavior. I believe Jay Johnson shared at one time that the person who has been diagnosed with a mental illness may see something, or let's just take it, maybe they believe they see a door in front of them and they're ready to open that door. So they do all the right movements, right? Go in. We, on the other hand, who believe we're not mentally ill, we're like, what are they doing? There's no door there. But they see it as clear as day. As clear as day. Ever had a dream where you feel like the Matrix, that you are part of it? What's the difference? What's the difference? And so as we continue the conversation, the first tip that I'd like to ask to write down is to, when we're having a conversation with a mentally ill person, make every attempt to see the person and not the illness that they're displaying. Because as soon as you see the illness, you're going to treat them different. As soon as you see the illness, you're going to talk to them different. And in that moment, you know how we feel we don't know who to talk to. We don't know where to go. We don't know if we should continue to pray and who's going to pray with us and for us. They feel it worse. The person who's actually has this illness has more trust issues. So that would be my first tip. If you can write that down, make every attempt. Thank you. Make every attempt to remind yourself that this person, this little girl is my daughter. This little young man is my son. This woman is my mother. These people are my friends. All right, anyone have anything to add in regards to mental illness? Share a story, a thought, feedback.
You know what? I agree with the stigma with the illness of how the church can treat it and different types of people. I, for one, experienced it from the point of view of a whole entire community, the Middle Eastern community. My last name is El-Qasi. I'm married to a wonderful Lebanese man. I suffered acute postpartum depression with my third daughter at age 41. It was so acute that I went into psychosis the first 3 days. I'll never forget the day I was sitting on the couch in a stupor with my infant child in my arms, my 15-month-old toddler beside me being so active, and my daughter who just came back from school, who was 7 years old. And I was sitting on that couch in that dark, dark, deep rabbit hole. And this, watching a program, I think it was Oprah that was on the show, but I wasn't watching it. I was just feeling sorry for myself. And then at 6 o'clock pronto, the door opens up and it's my husband. And he comes to me and he says, "Beth, what's for dinner?" And I look at him and I didn't think anything about dinner. That's not where I was. And he was pretty upset about it. It's not the first time. He saw me for weeks crying, being sad, depressed, not knowing what to do. He knew it. And the next thing he said to me, which I'm sure every one of us has heard it before. "So Beth, why can't you just snap out of it?" And I'll never forget, I was looked up into him and with tears streaming down my eyes, I said, "Don't you think that if I wanted to snap out of it, I could and I would? Do you think that I enjoy feeling this way?" And then I knew there was a little trigger that told me that if I was going to get help, I had to do it myself, despite being down that rabbit hole. And with everything I had, I reached out and finally got the courage to call my sister and tell her something was wrong, majorly wrong. And I did get the help. We had an intervention with my best friend, whose husband was a doctor. They sat down with my husband and told him she needs help. This is not the baby blues. This is real. So here's the deal. Being a part of the Middle Eastern community with all my in-laws, I was told then, and I kept it a secret for years, "Don't you dare say anything on my side of the family, what you went through," because he didn't want anybody to think I was crazy. Wow. Okay. And then later on, when I got out of this depression and I pulled myself out and I'm back to the happy Beth that I am today, I told myself I was going to create a platform where people could go at a non-judgment zone to express, and just like what we're doing here at the Roundtable. And afterwards, I did do a book. I Just Want to Be Happy Again. After I wrote that book, I got a lot of response. And what was surprising to me was the biggest response was from the Muslim women community, who said, "Beth, we are so glad that you brought this to the forefront because no one of us could ever express it." So it's not just about religion. There's also groups of people and their mindset is so closed that they won't acknowledge the fact that mental illness exists. And like you say, Myrtha and everybody else, it stays behind closed doors. You don't show the dirty laundry. So I just wanted to present that, is that it also crosses cultural boundaries of people being silent, and we need to open the door and let them express how they feel and get the services they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you. Okay, if we take a break and just, I would like the individuals in the audience, Lola, Cindy, Kathy, Susan, Helene, Brandon, do you have anything to share in regards to mental illness, and your definition and how it has affected you and what you'd like to see?
Yeah. Thank you for to everybody, for Myrtha for coordinating this, and to everybody for participating so far. When I imagine most of the people in this audience have seen the movie Inside Out, and then also the movie Soul that followed it, and I believe it was in the movie Soul where there's the lost soul. The soul that forgets its way, forgets who it is, and just bumbles around in pain and causing destruction all around. And I'd like to think of blending those two movies. I like to think of like there's an aspect of myself that is lost and in pain and can't figure out how to get out of it whenever I'm struggling with depression or whatever. If I recall correctly, the way that you rescued the lost soul or whatever was that you got it to remember its place, you got it to remember its belonging, its sense of connection, its love to bonds to others, and so it's kind of like through love bombing, like just continually showing love. And I think that in terms of like interacting with other people and their mental illness, interacting with components of my own psyche and my mental illness, yeah, just that to me, whether it's the cause or the effect or both, there's so much disconnection that happens with mental illness. And so the way that I find either it's the cure, or at least it makes it easier to navigate and cope with a mental illness is connection, and sense of place and belonging. So thanks.
Thank you. Ladies?
Hi, good morning. This is Kathy. I had a question for any of the panelists or any of the participants. I know you spoke earlier about when seeing the person and not the illness, right? And it does give you a different perspective. But what are your thoughts on if the person suppresses their illness? Like I know you spoke about, children and parents, but like being in, a relationship with someone that has a mental illness, but chooses to suppress it. And, they don't share necessarily, what's going on in their life, but you kind of see different, abnormal things that are going on. And eventually you kind of sense that something's just not right, but the person just refuses to even acknowledge. They have a family history of it, but they refuse to acknowledge it themselves. How do you, kind of navigate through something like that?
I can talk a little bit about that as a brain health professional. Because of the stigma, because of the fear of being considered crazy, the way I've helped some family members do that with people who are in denial or afraid to break out and say something is to say, hey, it seems like you've been feeling a little under the weather lately. Let's go see if we can get checked for, like, maybe you had a bump to the head. Maybe they did have a bump to the head. Maybe something happened physically that you can use that as an excuse, because there are ways to monitor what's going on in the brain, even if you can't have access to a SPECT scan or something like that. There are professionals like myself, and there are many, many others who can go through the history and use it like a physical examination and say, you know, maybe there's something going on and maybe we can get to the root that way. Because that the idea of the mental illness is so scary to some people for so many reasons. If we can bring it to the fact that there are many physical reasons for you feeling this way, then sometimes you can get past that, you know, not always, but a lot of my clients, my caregivers have used that. And we've had great success just talking. And then I go through like blood tests and things like that, because we can actually tell what's going on in the brain with certain tests, even if we can't do a SPECT scan. So that might be one thing that you can use, that you could offer.
But what if they don't acknowledge it and they don't want to go to a doctor? What's the next step? I would go to Patrice. Can you, since you work in an environment, can you share your professional input?
So if they don't want to go, a couple things I like to do at the beginning, I ask them, have you noticed something going on with you lately? What's happening with you? One question that I actually got from a girlfriend that she's doing with her daughters is, how's your heart? How is your mind?
Yeah.
And I asked, you know, what are you seeing going on? Do you feel like you're feeling like your best self right now? Because sometimes they may not want to say, if you say, we're going to the doctor, that may be the first thing, whoa, you're doing too much, slow down. But if I talk with you and say, I'm noticing this right now, I'm not really feeling like myself, then have them talk about, what does that mean you're not feeling like yourself? What does that look like? What does it feel like? Can you describe it to me? Because sometimes we don't have the right words, but you can tell me how it feels to you, how it sounds to you. Am I feeling a certain sensation? Because some people, they won't even be able to tell you that. They may say, I have a sensation of, or this feeling of. And I think that's a big one. Once you're able to get them to walk into that, then you can move to where Miss Kathy spoke about, saying, hey, you know what? Let's go get this checked out. Because I do believe, and this is something that I have found a lot more with the population that I have now, going to the doctor and just doing a regular blood test and hormone level check, especially for males and females in different stages of life, make a big difference. And I think that's a part that people really don't really talk about, but we need to talk about that. And then also, like I like to tell people, just loving on them, saying, you know what, I'm loving on you with who you are. No matter what they find, no matter what they see, I'm still here. I'm still going to champion with you. I tell my people all the time, no matter what happens, I'm going to rock with you. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to rock until the wheels fall off. And I want to know how I can best serve you. That's what I believe. And it's been helpful. And please, if you have any other questions or anything, reach out. Check out the website. Sorry, y'all, on the wrong side. Check out the website if need be, or drop an email and say, what can we do? I'm gladly here to help and serve.
Yeah.
Can I add something?
Yes, please.
Go ahead. My thoughts regarding, just like what Patrice said, I think what is most important, well, weighing the two, when you're dealing with a family member or someone that you're closely in contact with who's finding it hard to accept where they are or admit to where they are, the first thing you want to do is actually remember yourself. Try to establish some sort of soft boundary, because you don't want to get pulled in as well, because then as you're trying to help them who don't necessarily want, or they're not at the place where they're open to help, you can end up being drawn in yourself, and then you're both like almost in the same boat. So establishing some sort of boundary within yourself as you're trying to help this person come to light, I think is very, very important. Also, the basic foundation is creating a safe place, a safe space, meaning just like what Patrice was saying, and then you'd be able to move forward with Kate's example as well. Dialogue, putting it back on the person, so to speak. Instead of me coming to them, it's like, I'm noticing this, or you're acting this and that. Dropping questions that will cause them to think and get in touch with what's going on in the inside of them. And I can't find my words, but I believe that by doing that, by you dropping the questions and presenting them with the questions, it causes them to think, look inwardly, and knowing that you're there asking the questions and you and you're doing so in a non-judgmental way, it can begin to foster a connection, a relationship, a safe space, so to speak. Like, okay, this person, she's asking me this, and how am I feeling? What's going on in my heart? I don't know what's going on in my heart, but I want to know. And just asking the right questions, being there, being open, after you have established your boundaries, knowing where you are, what your capacity is at this given time, what you're able to give without being pulled in or draining yourself. But just, I sound like I'm repeating myself, creating a safe place through questions, the right types of questions, non-judgmental, not pushing, not demanding that they answer these questions, but just dropping it here and there and just doing little check-ins. I'm checking in with you. How you doing? Yeah. How are you feeling? What's on your mind? What's on your heart? What's your vibe like? You know, just little things like that to kind of like pull them out of that dark place, because the self-protective part of us, the ego part of us, wants to keep us safe and protected against the judgment of whatever we may end up experiencing if we were to actually admit, okay, things are crappy, or I don't like how I'm feeling, I don't want to be here anymore, you're getting on my nerves. You know what I mean? The ego and our self-protective nature wants to keep us in, but if we find little ways through questions and just being there for them, it tears that down. It ends up wooing them out. It has the potential to woo them out and create a safe space. Then it will be able, then from that point, you'll be able to suggest other things as you're, you know, working through the dialogue and communicating and all that good stuff. Hopefully that made sense.
It made a lot of sense. And I want to touch on the non-judgmental part. Kathy, if you also, when you're having these conversations, don't make it one-sided, because the person's going to feel interrogated.
Yeah.
So kind of share like a conversation. You know what, today, babes, something happened and my mind's not right. You know, how was your day? So share where you can now become a little bit vulnerable. So now they can see, okay, you know what, maybe I can share a little bit with you about what's really happening with my day. The other thing that I'd suggest is that you not so much journal, or not so much take notes, but rather journal the day-to-days, the things that are happening that shouldn't be happening. And so in conversation, say, oh, you know what? I seen that you did this. It's so unlike you. Is there, is something new that you wanted to try out or something, and see if they can come forward that way. Now, I want to bring the mic to the man in the room. Mr. J. Johnson, please share a little bit about being a man, and if you were in a relationship and going through some things, how would you want to be addressed?
Well, first of all, I want to comment on everything that you all just said. I'm here taking notes frantically. My pen is just spoken because there's such valuable information that you all are sharing. So first of all, thank you for that. One of the things that as a man, the men always have a tendency to suppress and hide and wear a mask and like, well, I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be all right with that type of mindset, which is basically very detrimental to their health, mentally and emotionally, as well as physically, as well as their relationships. So one way to address them, though, is for me is asking questions, because I believe questions are the answers. Not necessarily, like you said, Ms. Myrtha, like in an interrogation type of deal, but it's like asking the right questions, because if you ask the right question, you'll get the right answers. Starting something as simple with your dream. Let's go back to your dream, right? What does that house look like? What does that car look like? What does that family look like? What does that relationship look like to you? What does that house look like? I mean, where do you want to go when you're on vacation? Who do you want to take? What do you want to do? What do you want to become? Who do you want to become? Who's one of your mentors? That type of thing, and get them back into a place where, hey, it's something in it for me. Because everyone walk around with this radio station stamped across their head, WIIFM is what's in it for me. So when we get back more into what is in it for them, they have a tendency to open up a little bit more, because they're talking about themselves. And it's one thing I used to do with my my acting classes is I would play this game called I, Me, My, Us, We. I, me, my, us, we. And I encourage you to try this conversation with someone where you cannot say I, me, my, us, or we. Just eliminate those words from your vocabulary. And what happens here is you'll start to really, really think about your conversation, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, and you'll start to ask them more questions about them in order to actually keep the conversation going on. And that puts them into a point where it's like, well, hey, you really are concerned, you really do care. And the walls start to fall, so to speak. They start to open up to you a little bit more. And now it gives you an open door, like Patrice was saying, to say, well, hey, now let's go ahead and let's have you considered this? Instead of you need to do this, you need to do that. No, have you considered this an option? Have you considered that? Have you thought about this as an option? And now we could actually say, well, hey, you know what? I have a good friend that that is really, really calm. She's very amazing. This young lady is she deals with situations like this. Now, I really don't know exactly how you feel. I really cannot relate. However, I do know someone who may be able to get you to a point where you can achieve all these goals. And maybe it's Miss Kate, you know, maybe it's Dr. Toya, whoever that person is. Would you mind if I make the introduction? You know, and it's more like a relationship type of thing that you can do rather than, hey, you need to go to this clinic, you know, you need to go to this psychiatrist. And those big words have a tendency to shut us down, so to speak, because again, we're walking and breathing on ego. So if we can take the ego from edging God out to economic growth and opportunity, we'll be all right. So I would start with it. We'll start with the question.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Kathy, I would also tell you, one of the things that I do for a lot of families, relationships, even in my own family, is I do this thing where we are visualizing planting our seeds of our garden of what we want in life. And there's all these various categories that you do. So you make this a fun situation. But what happens is when you get to relationships and dreams and finances, and you see the seeds that they're planting and what means the most for them, and then you're looking at your seeds, you're able to see how that person is making decisions based on where they are in life. So like for me, my relationships, the very first thing that I have to have is safety and security. If I don't feel safe and secure around you, I don't care if you have the other 90 things that I stated I wanted. That's the most important one. And then what happens when you look at a way a male or someone in a relationship thinks and what their priority is, you kind of see, well, this is the decision process that they're using to make these decisions. And this is how they're determining what they're going to do in life. But then what happens is then once you do that, then you get to have each person tell their story of what they think about them. Because until we know where we're at, we don't know how we're going to get to where we want to go. And then that's where you can start introducing other things to them and other help and other resources, because most people don't trust anybody because they don't trust themselves. So if you could start figuring out what you trust about you, and I'm feeling safe and secure with you, that's going to open it up for me to feel more comfortable going to other people. But that baseline has to be established first. And those are a couple exercises I could just throw out just off the top of my head that would help open that in a non-threatening, non-judgmental way.
I love that. I love that so much. Trust is a huge thing, a huge, huge thing. You know, Ms. Miriam, I want to see if there's a way, because I know that you're sitting quietly over there, and I know that you have so much to share as well. I want to see if you can actually add a little value to this conversation as well. Is your mic open? Okay, we still cannot hear you. Okay, I'm going to drop my my number in the chat for you, Ms. Miriam. Please give me a call. I want to see if I can actually troubleshoot with you to get your microphone open, because I do want you to be a part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Ms.
Yeah.
Patrice, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Ms. Kathy, you've heard a lot of responses. I'm hoping that you're getting what you asked for. You're getting the response that the answer that you're looking for.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just the so many different perspectives just gave me a lot of answers, and it just gave me a lot to think about. But I definitely appreciate everyone's feedback. Very, very, very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you. Helene, Susan, Cindy, and Lola, do you have anything to share before we move on?
Good morning, everyone. I have something to share. I have a question about older adults. I was just with my aunties who are now in their 80s, well, early 80s, and I noticed that one has like effects of dementia, but both of them have effects of depression. So we always call and check on them, make sure that they're eating, they're taking their meds. But I noticed that these once spirited women, always went to church, always were going out. Now they just stay in the house all the time. We're just trying to get them more motivated to do different things outside. And with older people, they have a mindset, you can't tell them what to do, but we just want to make like lively suggestions about what they can do. So we suggested like on the nice cooler days, on the cooler evenings, just to go sit, like they have a little porch area, just to go sit outside. Sometimes we just drive over there, or my sister and I, we would have dinners with them on Friday and just talk with them. So I just wanted to know, like, when you see these signs, like as a family, we're noticing the signs of these once women who like to go out and be motivated. They are now inside themselves. Like they're talking, but we're now also working on caregivers to like assist them in the home, because we're noticing that house things aren't getting done. Sometimes they don't want to cook. So us as a family, we're being rounded, we're rounding and grouping around them to surround them with the love that they need and the support that they need. But sometimes it gets kind of heavy as a family. So I just wanted to know, how do you deal with older people in your family and dementia and depression? How does that work? And are we on the right track of what we're doing?
Doing
Yes,
really,
thank you.
doing very well. Yes, as a brain health professional who specializes in dementia prevention, I can say, number one, by being engaged with them and working with them as much as you can, that's great. Nutrition is a big issue. If they are suffering from depression and are sliding towards dementia, I'm telling you, absolutely, they need to have their nutritional intake analyzed and improved, because chances are they're low in B12, they're low in omega-3 fatty acids, they're low in magnesium. Those are the things that slide people toward that. I can hear it, what you're talking about, because depression is a risk factor for dementia as well, right? And many people are diagnosed with dementia, but they actually have depression and vice versa. So nutrition has to be first. So find out what they're eating. Do you know what they're eating? You said they don't like to cook, but what are they eating?
I noticed that my aunt's daughter, my cousin, she.
Hello?
Yes, you can go ahead. Continue.
Helene?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I muted myself. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My niece, my aunt's daughter, takes them my cousin, my aunt's daughter, takes them shopping so that they can buy some things that they like, but they geared toward a lot of the sweet things. And one of them, or both of them, are diabetics, one insulin dependent and not. So we try to suggest healthier things for them. But of course, being that they're older, we're like, okay, well, if you want soda, how about seltzer water? So now we're edging them onto drinking seltzer water. But yes, healthy things, like they want candy, they want sweets. We're fighting with them with that.
That's very typical, because actually sugar is more addictive than cocaine. That is
Yes, it is.
very typical. So this is an important thing to work toward. What might be really fun is if there are some of you who can engage with them, and I have a whole recipe book. I can, if you want, just write to me.
Sure.
We offer ways to incorporate sweet taste, but healthy. So like bananas made into ice cream, which is very simple and very inexpensive. We can use dates chopped up really fine into like some kind of a dessert-like thing. So with even sliced bananas with some dates chopped up. So they get the sweet, but they're also getting the nutrition, the potassium, the magnesium, all of the important things that are in those foods. So having it a cook night or a fun night, make it an adventure, just like we do with small children. We can do the same thing with elderly people who are losing their interest because it's lonely, it's boring. If they've made the same things or they don't want to make those things anymore, make it an adventure, make it a family thing. So that's one idea. The sugar has to go. I'm telling you, the sugar and the food dyes have got to go. Red dye has to go from their diet because it is a surefire path to everything getting worse. So those little nutritional things can make a big difference. And then when they start feeling a little bit more into it because they've cut out the sugar and that addiction is gone, or they're not taking those dyes, or they're not getting those artificial ingredients, that will make a huge difference. This is going to be work for the family. This may be that you need a full-time caregiver to, or at least someone to come in and cook. But if you've got to choose that person really carefully, because you don't want someone who's an institutional cook who cooks like they do in normal nursing homes, because that is a recipe for disaster. I speak from experience there, what happened to my mom. So that is number one, nutrition. The next thing is to get them to do things that are new. Make it an adventure. There's always something you can do to expose them to a really different food, or to take them to a part of the town that they've never been to before. They may not be able to travel, but they might be able to go experience something within their community that is different. Something new helps them engage, and they don't have to be active. They can be kind of just passive and watching. So that's number two, but number three is exercise. Actually, exercise could probably even go ahead of diet, because we know that exercise is more effective than any antidepressant for depression. We know that. We can see it in the brain, we can see it in the blood work, we can see it in the hormones, we can see it in everything, and it improves the hormones. So those three things, but making it an adventure, just like we do with 3-year-olds. I watch the same thing with so many clients, you know, when they're working with their parents, to make it an adventure, because an adventure gives them something to think about. And also, this is a great trick. There's a guy, sorry, I'm going to go on for a little bit, but there's a fellow a doctor, a dementia specialist in California. He has this wonderful, it's called the 5 senses exercise. So what we do is we cook with them. We cook with them and we experience taste and smell together, but we talk about what those things make them remember when they were younger. What does that, you know, you might know that it's a favorite food that they used to love to cook, or that the family had a family meal. Make it with them and talk about the memories that inspires. Then also do something with music. Play some music that you know they loved or love, and talk about the memories. Was that the dance that you did when you got married? Or is that something like that inspires happy memories? The same thing with looking at pictures even. It might be pictures. It might be something that brings back wonderful memories. My mom, oh my gosh, even in her very latest stages of dementia, I would bring the family photo albums and we would talk. And those were the only times I could actually get her to talk. So that would be another thing, but it lifts them out, right? Again, and they can also give wisdom and advice and stories, and then touching things. So give them something that they love, maybe a piece of silk, remind them of their boudoir for their honeymoon, or something where they feel something that makes them comfortable. If they like stuffed toys, so they can talk about it. Maybe that was the stuffed toy that their child had or grandchild had, something like that. The 5 senses, if you can engage them, but not just give them to them or have them experience, talk to them about it. And that's fun for everybody. Everybody in the family can do that. And if it's a caregiver, that's something new for the caregiver, and they can ask lots of questions, and it doesn't take special training. It's easy, and it's huge for lifting depression. And I'll bet you anything, you cut out that sugar, number one, because it's inflammatory, and improve the nutrition somehow get that better. Make sure that there's no color, little processed food as possible, fresh fruits and vegetables. And you'll see it'll be different. They will be different. Even people who are in advanced stages of Alzheimer's can be lifted out to some degree by doing those things. So if they're just starting, now is the time to do it.
Can I add a little something to that?
Yes.
Thank you so much. That was, I didn't mean to interrupt, but thank you so much. And as far as the cooking, that was an idea we just shared last night. We were watching the movie Respect, Aretha Franklin, and my aunt had the Amazing Grace album, and she was just talking about, you remember when you guys used to come over on Sunday and we played the album? And we were like, okay, so next Sunday, let's get the album out, get the CD out, and let's sit down. And we just said, let's make Sunday dinner. I was like, we're all going to get in the kitchen. We're going to get the ingredients and we're going to do this. Because my niece had an impromptu cookout yesterday. So he's like, auntie, don't you remember when you like to cook this, this, and this? And she wanted to do it. So we have a plan for next Sunday. Thank you so much. That was something that we spoke about yesterday. And I appreciate it. I have my notebook and I'm writing things down. Thank you so much for your suggestions.
The only thing, Helene, that you're going to change a little bit is what's on the menu.
Of course.
We're going to have some peas and some this and some that, but we're going to have to change that up a little bit, just a little bit.
Yes, healthy choices on the menu, of course.
Absolutely. I would love to have Linda share into that a little bit about dementia. Linda, how does reading help out? So share a little bit about that. And I'd love Miriam to jump in right after and talk about your experience, please. Go ahead, Linda.
For that, I worked with my sister who had lost her memory. Off and on through her sickness, she had vascular disease, which affected her whole everything. Right. And she had lost her memory, her short-term memory, where she barely remembered her name, remembered us. And then slowly but surely it came back. But her long-term memory always was always there. She could always go back there, but just like basic, like how to put her shirt on, how to put her pants on, how to do those things. She couldn't remember those sequential things. So far as reading, me and my sister, we used to read all the time together. We pick a book, we pick an author, and we would always talk about it, have discussions. And at this particular time between 2012 up until maybe 2020, where we lost her in 2021, she couldn't really participate in the conversation. And it was kind of like sad within myself to see that she really couldn't really get into it, where she would just like put the book away. And she's like an avid reader. But in 2021, what happened was something happened. A spark happened. I don't know. I took her to the bookstore and all of a sudden she wanted to read again. And then she started reading. Her mood changed. She went from just wanting to be in her room to I'll come out in the living room. Oh, well, what are you reading? So I saw her mood change. I saw her be able to participate in the conversation. I saw her be able to comprehend what she read and also talk about some other things where we really would get into some, okay, so what are we reading next? What are we reading next? And sometimes she would take a little longer, but that was okay. The fact that she actually picked up the book on her own. And it just made me just happy because now, okay, I'm seeing you doing it on your own. I would always bring a book over because I was one of her main caretakers. So I would always come over to the house and I would always have books. And she had a library of her own, but she would just look at it and just go, whatever. But then all of a sudden, something happened. And I was just so thankful and happy for it because I saw her mood change. I saw her want to get more books. I saw her want to read. So far as for reading, that really it took her mind off her illness. It took her mind off of her pain. It took her mind off of the stress, anxiety, where like her anxiety medication that she was on, it was, she didn't have to take it every night. And she was getting to the point where she really didn't want to take it. She wanted to find other ways to get around it. But I saw her use the reading as a way to like, okay, I need my bedtime story so I can go to bed and rest nicely and calmly. And I saw her calm down. But I just see that comprehension skills that she had, I saw them come back. So reading is definitely a tool that can help you with relieving stress, anxiety, increasing your critical thinking skills, because you have to be able to read the words, understand, and then come and have a conversation about it. So I would definitely suggest reading as a tool. And I would start with something easy and then a high interest to the person. It can't just be something you like. You have to figure out what does that person like, and then make sure it's, like I said, high interest, and then start small, and then you see the success, and then you keep going, and then they'll start suggesting to you what they want to read. So it definitely was, I saw a big change in my sister, which was just like, oh wow, we're gonna have a good day today.
Yeah. Linda, let me ask you, if they're not reading for themselves, would you suggest you start off reading to them?
Yes, you can read to them. And also now what I use now is audiobooks. So you can listen on tape.
Yes.
So that's something as well too. So I just started really reading, listening to audio tapes. So I would either do, if they allow you, because sometimes people don't want to be read to, but if you make it fun, and you can paint the picture and you can get animated with the book, so it becomes a fun thing where it's like it's a play. And if they want to jump in, then they can, but I think that could be fun as well. Make it a fun adventure.
Thank you so much. Miriam, would you like to share a few words? No, she's muted.
You'll have to unmute Mr.
Is that sure?
There you are.
I'm listening to everyone's stories, and it's like, wow, my experience with my mom was like so different. One thing I have to say is pay attention to what things that are happening, because she started like burning food. I would come home for lunch and it's like, what happened? I put something on the stove and forgot. I put something on the stove and forgot. And it's like, okay. But since we didn't realize something was going on, it was just like, okay, she burned something. She's always cleaning out her closet. Every chance she got, she was in her closet. Little did we know, after we moved her out and we went to clean out her closet, there was things in there that shouldn't have been in there. There was a lot of Publix bags, Publix plastic bags she was putting away for no reason at all, just everywhere. And all this stuff was going on and we had no idea. We had no idea. But she, like you said, they cannot control what their mind does. She would have moments where she was back and she would actually ask, what's wrong with me? She knew something was wrong. She was very big on little kids. I mean, she, in her job, she always had candy for little kids. She worked at a hospital. So anytime the kids came to the hospital, they knew to go to Mrs. Wright's desk. And so since she had this little thing with little kids and adopted so many grandkids, we got her a doll. And we said, let's get her a doll that she could, So we got her a doll. We just gave it to her and said, well, you name it. You give her a name. And she named it her mom's name. And it was like, okay. And it was a doll that you could feed. And so she took it everywhere she went. She had the doll. Somebody said about giving them pictures or looking at albums. We did a little grandma thing for her because we had her in adult daycare for a while, and they had Grandma Day. So we did a little album with the grandma pictures. And she took it, she brought it back, and then she actually wanted to see the pictures. So I took it out, gave her the pictures. The next thing I knew, the pictures were in 100 pieces. And we were like, okay, she wanted money. She had a thing with money. And where's her money? And what's her money? And so he said, okay, I'm gonna give you $1. Because I said, if she give her a change, she might swallow it. So let me give her $1. I gave her $1. The next day, I asked her, where's your dollar? I look at her wallet, it's in 100 pieces. She had a thing of tearing up or destroying. She was destroying. But then there's a certain way that she said my name. I knew she was back. I knew something was there. So, wow. She even one night asked, all four of her kids were here, and she asked us to pray with her. So it's like, when they say dementia, they forget everything. And for some reason, my mom would come and go. She would come and go. So I don't know if anyone else has had that experience. She was good one minute and the next minute, and you can tell when she was going because her eye, there's a certain way that her eyes would like just turn dark. It was like a darkness would come over her. And I would just say, uh-oh, something's getting ready to happen. And sure enough, she would start destroying stuff. She actually, I had my camera, which I didn't get it to the beginning. I said, if you knew me well, you knew I always have a camera around my neck. And I had this Nikon camera that I had. And I realized when I looked at the camera, I thought, oh my God, why did I leave it there? Right when I said that, she got up, got my camera and swung it across the room. So it was like she was a destructive. And if you knew my mom before, she was a sweetheart. Everybody loved Mrs. Wright and her candy. And so it's like her dementia just totally made her another person.
That's because part of her brain, like I explained this, and this might be valuable for other people. I had to explain this to my dad because he couldn't understand why mom was coming and going, why she was very violent. Mom, like,
yes.
She was not a violent person
exactly.
in her normal life, but she became very violent, and she actually went after my father with a knife, like it was really serious. So what happens is, like, the various parts of the brain are affected, but our brains are incredible that they can find workarounds. They can find a new path. The neural pathways can be opened up. So for a while, that path can be used to do what another one that's damaged can't do anymore. And then my dad was an electrician. So I also explained that sometimes the neural pathways are gapped, like the spark can't jump from here to here. It has to be closer. And if that has been damaged either through amyloid plaques or some other kind of damage, it can only make it, but sometimes the sparks might jump far enough. It might depend on how much sleep they had, what they ate, how much sugar they've had. All those things can impact how much space can be bridged by the going between neurons. So that's why that kind of thing happens. So for anybody else who experiences that with family members, Kathy, if you're still here, that's the kind of thing that can be expected because the brain is figuring out workarounds. Our brains are amazing, but it can only do so much, right? So that's why we have to help it so much. But that's why we get that weirdness where it's, yes, she's back for 10 minutes and then she's gone.
Yes. And then she'll be doing like this destructive. She wanted to throw and break and she punched somebody in daycare, so we had to take her out of daycare. They wouldn't take her anymore.
Yeah, my mom attacked somebody in the nursing home. Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that I keep hearing, and I would just like to say this as well, is like, as caregivers, we have to take care of ourselves first.
Yes.
And I know so often we spend so much of the time taking care of the others that we neglect ourselves. We neglect our mental health. We neglect our physical health. We're not eating properly. We're not doing all the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves, because there's a part of us that feels like it's a little selfish, like they need me to take care of them. So let me just put myself on the back burner, but not realizing that that's tearing you down. And then you start to have all of this guilt and this shame, and then you start to hold grudges, and you start to have all these regrets and rejections and resentments. And then there's a part of you that little feels, and we don't want to admit, a little revengeful, like I'm over this. And it's because we're not taking care of ourselves. We're just being absorbed by their sickness. And that's a very hard place as a caregiver to sit. And so I think that's also important, as that the caregivers need to give themselves some grace and give themselves some love and give themselves some appreciation, because it's deserved, because you are taking on someone else. So I think that's very important for anybody that is a caregiver or has been a caregiver, is just to nurture and love yourself first. Like you need that to be able to be 100% effective in helping others as well.
Plus, a lot of caregivers end up dying before their charges. That's a
Yeah.
very scary statistic. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Remember that thin line?
That's why I put her in daycare. And then when we could no longer take her to daycare, then I got home instead to come 3 times a week to the house because I needed my break.
Yeah. Remember, there is a thin line, a very, very thin line. Kathy, please. You have to feel.
Yes, I just wanted to respond about being a caregiver. I've also been on that side of it as well with being a primary caregiver for my dad. And then 4 years later, my mom suffering a stroke and being her primary caregiver. And it literally took a toll on me. Now I'm one of those, I can do yoga and I can, try to get myself out of most situations when I feel myself being pulled in. But this was something that I had never experienced. I'm not in the medical profession by any means. And so having to take care of somebody's daily needs from like the most, from like the childlike things, to an adult was very, very, very hard on me. I was in school full time. I'm working, trying to, maintain my own life. And now I'm this caregiver for my mother, and I struggled a lot. And it was hard because, of course, there was not much family support there. But I did rely on, my friends, Linda, one of your panelists, great friend of mine, who would, come and, didn't know my mother. We didn't grow up together, but we did become friends as an adult. And, I would ask her, can you come and sit with my mom just so I can get a break? Just so I can have a moment just to kind of clear my mind and not be on duty for a minute. And, my mom was she was just immobile. She can laugh and smile and still have a great time, but she just could not physically care for herself. But it did take a toll on me, and it got scary for a very long time because I started to not feel like myself. I started to not, do things that I enjoyed so much because I was just so focused on her and making sure she's good and, she's taken care of. And I just kind of felt like I lost myself. And it's still, sadly, she passed from COVID 2 years ago, but I still find myself today still trying to get myself back to what a normal life was. Like I used to travel a lot. It's just so many things I used to do that I just don't do anymore. Even now going, when I go shopping, I go to Walmart and I find myself saying, oh, she would like this, because I'm just so used to doing everything for her. And it's like now to not doing things, but my mind is still in caregiver mode. Like I should buy these shoes for her, I should buy this. So it's a lot. So I do appreciate, that being touched on as well, the caregiver aspect of it, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yes, it is. It is. Good stuff.
I would like to add something real quick on that, Kathy. Just one of the things that we can do, because I know that dealing with someone, dealing with the loss is a very, very trying thing, and it really, really puts us into a mode of depression and things of that nature, especially around the holidays and birthdays and things of that nature. So one of the things that I was actually implementing with my family is doing something. I lost my mother a few years ago as well. Doing something in her honor that can actually help benefit the family, something that she really enjoyed doing. Maybe it was reading. Then we actually have a scholarship for those who actually go to school in her honor. So it's something that we can actually look forward to, so we can actually keep the legacy alive. Because I believe that when you die twice. You die once when the heart stops, and you die the second time when no one else on the planet speaks your name. So how long do you want her legacy to live, right? So you can do something in her honor so it can continue to live and outlive us all.
I love that. I love that. Thank you.
Nice, nice. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mental health. I started to look for the definition of mental health, and everything brought me back to mental illness. Let's try. Take out your phone and just Google mental health. Google kept bringing me back to mental illness. And I'm wondering, why is that? And so something populated, and it's because I asked, well, what's the difference between mental illness and mental health? And what populated was, how do you get to good mental health? Because mental health by itself is, it seems like it's automatically, bad. And so good mental health is what I Googled. And so that, let me see if I can pull up the information that I have. Bear with me a moment.
While you're doing that, if you don't mind,
Not
I
at
was
all.
a guest on a podcast a few days ago, and the gentleman asked me, what is mental health?
Mhm.
And I said, well, when we say that we are healthy, we're of sound mind and body, right? We're sound. We human beings are vibrating mentally, physically, socially, spiritually all the time. So when we are of sound health, when we are mentally healthy, we are in alignment. We are in the right frequency. We're vibrating in the right way, all in alignment. We are in tune. That's the way I put it. And he seemed to appreciate that because he's a musician, but it's just being in tune. Our body, mind, spirit, physically, emotionally, we are in tune. So we can relate to our own emotions, and we can relate to those of others. We can relate to the world around us. So that to me is mental health.
Yes, yes. And I love that. It's just from, it was the not being able to find a definition of mental health by itself without having to put the good in front of it. And I found that very odd. But like you mentioned, Kate, yes, it is an alignment. I mean, we talk about mental illness as, not having good alignment with your mood and your behaviors and your thought patterns. So yes, it just, it makes good sense that it would be the opposite of that. But why, if someone were to Google mental health, like I'm experiencing some things, how's my mental health? What test do I take to feel mentally healthy, if you would? And I just found that odd that I had to put good in front of mental health. But I love your definition. But one thing that I wanted to bring up, this is why I had to read it, is because when I now look for good mental health, it talked about being able to cope with stress. Now, I don't know about you, but how often can we cope properly with stress? So remember that thin line? Everybody tells you we're all affected. This makes sense now, doesn't it? Because we all have broken down at some point or another with the stress that's happening in our world. The other one is you work productively. Okay, wait, stop, wait a minute. And then it goes on to say, you realize your potential, really. And you contribute to the community, like how? Help me understand. How do you contribute when you're not feeling like you want to feel?
It's because the whole society is focused on doing instead of being.
Thank you.
It's like, just be. And here in Ecuador, we have two words for to be. One is estar and one is ser. Estar is a temporary state of to being. Ser is to be. I am. And I just love that. We have two words to distinguish how we are, who we are, what we are, and what we are at that moment, like a mother, or I'm doing something. I love that, because to be, just to be. Nobody thinks what is to be or not to be.
And then let our doing flow from our being, but being should be first. And then Yeah.
That's why we're called human beings, not human doings.
Bingo. Bingo.
And I think it's important for us to implement things that help reduce our stress so we can identify it. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. If we learn how to put the smoke detector up and we realize by being mindful, which I am a big supporter of mindfulness, because if we can't be mindful in the things that are going around us, like the things that we can sense or hear, taste, all of these things, then we're never going to be able to understand what's going in internally, because we're not able to hear that or see that. We just wait till it's too bad. So if we can become mindful, and the moment we pick up, okay, something doesn't feel right here, and we focus on what it is and what we need to remove ourselves, because typically when we're stressed out, it's because we're putting all this pressure on us to do. Like we keep saying, we're trying to do and get approval and make sure there's no judgment. And we got all of these conditions that we put on ourselves that created that one moment of stress, where if we just sit in the moment for a second, breathe through it, be mindful, and realize that I can't control the next 20 minutes, but I can control right now, and learn to live in the now and in the present, not what just happened yesterday or what just happened 30 minutes ago. One of my favorite quotes from a coach that told me that I use, she says, us going back, looking at something we just experienced or living something that we used to live, is like going back to an apartment we don't live anymore and taking stuff out of it. It doesn't belong to us anymore. And we just keep bringing it with us. We just keep packing it and bringing it. And it's just like, no, let it go. And then the other thing that I tell people to think about stress is live each day as an experiment. Figure out what works and what doesn't work. Then you remove failure. You remove that stress. You remove all those expectations that you put on, and then remove expectations to where you to an outcome, and just have your expectations on what is the best and the highest good for you. And when you operate like that, you kind of eliminate some of that stress and that anxiety and that pressure, because you're not putting it there to accomplish for others. It's just what's for you and what's best for you.
It's so weird that we are, I'm sorry.
No, I just said love it.
Me too. I think it's just so weird how we are taught, or at least for me, and I want to generalize, it's just so weird that we're taught the opposite of that. So that hearing something like this, just hearing you speak it, it brings an answer for some situations, or a mindset that I'm dealing with, and it brings such a peace. Like, this is the answer. And it seems like such a simple answer, but because we've been conditioned another type of way, it's like it's almost too good to be true that it can boil down to something as simple as being in the present now. It's something as simple as just being and not necessarily doing, because when you think about just being, it's just, I don't feel like this is enough, but it is. It is. Just by dwelling in your being, there's peace there, there's alignment, there's clarity. You're able to hear more and see more, and then you're able to flow. But we're not taught that. And because we're not taught that, and because we've been conditioned, it will take a lot to take off those garments and to reprogram ourselves and to create a new narrative, the natural narrative, the way that it should be. I just think it's so doggone fascinating. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
We feel uncomfortable because we're overachievers. Yeah.
You hit exactly where I want to go. As you were talking, I wrote a couple things down. We've been conditioned to be bondaged, to be wrapped in bondage. We have been conditioned as a society to be wrapped in bondage. And I want to give you this visual. I want you to imagine each of your life roles as a belt. So, mommy, that's not a bondage thing. You made it happen. The next one, caregiver. All right, that had to happen. The next one, employee, that had to happen. All these different things, but nobody's told you how to live with them in balance. That was my next word, balance. Then when you talk about what does that balance look like for you, what's a healthy you? Because for a lot of us, we have no idea. Let me just speak for Patrice in our house. Growing up, it was, you need to make sure you serve others. There's nothing wrong with serving others, but service starts with you first. How do you take care of you? So I had to learn to craft. When I say craft and carve, I had to learn how to craft my day. Hey, listen, you need them 5 minutes for you. That morning devotional for you, help you get your mind right. Your evening tea, everybody else may have this, but that's what you need for you. Along with that, learning, like you said, being in that now. And then another part, which I feel like this happened even more after COVID, and y'all jump in. I feel like we got to the point that people didn't understand that we had a life outside of the job. So many of us got into that, oh my God, I need to do this, and email ting, and I'm gonna be honest with you. For me, when I leave a people's job, I turn off the email. They get mad, they be hot, I don't care. I be like, click, click. I'm like, I'll see y'all when I get back. Because it got to the point I hated to even hear the ding of the email. It got that bad. So it was little things for me that was like, that's a boundary thing. 9 o'clock is your 9 pages at 9. You got to have those little boundary things placed for you. And then, like you talked about, being that overachiever, we have taught our children, our grandchildren, depending on whatever age you are on the panel, children, grandchildren, and even ourselves, that it's about the outcome, not the effort. And that's the part that have so many kids wrapped up in this, there's no other option, there's no way out. I have to be this in order for them to say that I'm good or I'm the best. And it's not that.
2 words.
2 minutes.
2 words. Be still.
That's it.
For a lot of people, be still means literally
sitting
not
down,
doing anything. But be still is not about being still physically. Be still is about taking that moment to restore, taking that moment to get refreshed, taking that moment to even plan, strategize, line some things out. And so, Dr. Otoya, you started something here, and then Patrice and Sonia jumped in, and it's really about taking a moment for you. And I have this saying, you need to say yes. Excuse me, let me go back. You need to say no, not just to say no, but every time it means saying yes to yourself. Because people have this, a lot of posts, I just said no, and no, it's not enough. I apologize, it's not enough. Just to say no, that's not enough. Why are you saying no? To be what? Mean? To be because you think you can? That's why our society is the way that we are now. We need to have conversations. No is not a full conversation, excuse me. But when you say no, because I got to wash my hair today, it all makes sense now. When you say no, I mean, I give this example. You are about to start a meeting. Let's say we're doing this today. And then all of a sudden I have my child who says, I need to get to the airport. You need to drive me. Do you ask somebody to take over your meeting? Or do you say, catch a cab, grab an Uber, look for public transportation, or call a friend? Because what that does is when I'm rushing to go help this other person who was not part of my plan today, what happens to you? So every time or any time that we say no, think of self. Or if we say yes, what am I not doing for myself?
And realizing every time you do something that's not for your best and highest good, you're abandoning yourself. And then what triggers from that is, if I grew up in abandonment, I already learned how to abandon. So I abandoned the one person, that needs it the most, which is myself. And then when we abandon ourselves, then we don't trust ourselves, and then we don't trust others. When we abandon ourselves, we don't love ourselves, and we can't love others. So everything that you're looking for fulfillment, you can't get because you're constantly abandoning yourself and the things that you need and the things that you want. That's how our mind processes. So I would love to hear Kate from the brain perspective of like what our brain does with all of that, because I don't know the brain, I know the mind, but I also know that that's deep ingrained to go back into the mind of that one particular thing of not choosing us.
Before we get to Kate, before 1 second, I see Linda, you had your hand up for a while. I just want you to chime in before we go to Kate.
Okay, what I was gonna say, everything's been good, and I've just been like writing down, and this conversation has been really, really good. But what I was going to talk about, what Therese was talking about, I guess she was in my mind when she was talking, because I was talking about like how you declutter your mind. When you declutter your mind, you declutter your body, because you find out what's in there that should be out. That means you're self-aware, as Kate was talking about, you're aware of what's happening with yourself. So that now you can say, okay, now this doesn't belong, I can take that off, or I can deal with this, or that's not my problem. Because I realize sometimes we take on other people's problems and situations because, you know, we have a heart, we're empathetic to other people, but sometimes we have to know the boundaries of how far that's going to go with us, because it's transference of energy. We take on that. So now all of a sudden we're feeling some kind of way. We don't understand why we're feeling down, and we can't get back up because you took on somebody else's problem. You decluttered your mind. Now your body is out of whack. So the alignment that you want and that you're craving is not there anymore. So, and also I'm reading this book, it's called The Gift of Presence. It's a mindfulness guide for women, but Jay, you can read it because it's for anybody. It's about being present for yourself. It's by Caroline Welch, and it's very good. And she gives you active steps and things that you can practice and do. It's like a good read. So it's not something like a novel where you just read through it, but you can, like, you know, take some time and like read what she's talking about and how it can connect to you. Because I feel that I see that I'm very connected to what she's talking about, and the active things in mindfulness and being intentional with yourself. Like, we have to bring back the intention and be selfish for ourselves, because we cannot help anyone if we're not helping ourselves, because we're the first person. You know, we're the first line of defense. You got to, like, you know, and when you're in the airline, they tell you to put the mask on yourself first, and then you can help others. And we have to do that in our regular life. That's what I wanted to add to the room.
Nice ad. Thank you. Kate?
You dropped the book in the chat.
Yeah, so we're talking about decluttering, which is one of the things I teach, and Dr. Amen does. Multitasking is impossible. I don't want to hear anybody say I'm really good at multitasking, because nobody is. We are not multitaskers. Our brains are not computers that can run 16 programs at the same time with 25 tabs open in the search engine.
You're killing my dream.
Too bad.
That's all my tabs. Just go away.
Right.
So and if we are very rapid sequential taskers, and we can actually drive and talk at the same time, but that's only because when we're driving, if we've been driving for a long time, it's on automatic. Our subconscious is actually working on that, but we cannot consciously do many things at once. So when you were asking about what goes on in our brain, if we try to do too much, it actually is like misfiring. The memories, when you're doing something and you're trying to do something else at the same time, that information, when you switch, because you're not actually doing it at the same time, you're sequentially, you lose a few seconds every time you switch tasks. It takes a while to get back to that other task or to the next one, because your brain has to get into gear. So when you are doing too much, when you're cluttered with people, places, things, stuff, when that all causes, I'm using it as a very rudimentary description, but it's like misfiring. So we have to be very protectful of our brains by not doing those things, because it can actually cause an inflammation, because it's doing things that it's not designed to do. It can actually move memories where you can't access them. That's why when you're stressed, You can't remember things that you need to remember because the brain can't sort through and get to the right place on the hard drive. It can't get there. So that's also then why we sometimes flip out, why we sometimes have irrational responses to something that's not a big thing, because it's that it's like the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. We just have too much on our plate. And yes, it affects our mental health, but it actually affects our brains. We are not multitaskers. So that's where I kind of wanted to go with that. We have to look after number one first, as everybody's been pointing out, because we can't do it all. We can be only one thing, and that's ourselves. All the other things are just things that we do. The mom, the teacher, the whatever you are, the nurse. Yeah. So that's what you asked me about the brain. So that's my thing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so very much. All right. We're going to do a couple of exercises, but before we do, let's think about, we talked about mental illness a little bit. We talked about defining mental health. So what does being aware, how does that help us? What's this mental health awareness?
I think it opens up discussion for the light to be shone on something that we all need to address by being aware that there are problems in your own life, in the lives of most people. It makes us more compassionate, empathetic, kinder. I think that's a big, important thing. I don't think the world is kind enough.
Yes, yes, we lost that humankind. Is that what you say, Jay? We have a problem with humankind?
Well, I think that there's no problem in the world. I mean, we're actually focusing on the wrong things. There's no alcohol problem. There's no addiction problem. There's no sex problem. There's no political problem. There's not a race problem. The biggest problem that we face in America and in the world today, in my opinion, is humanity. We have a humanity problem. When we put humanity back in order, all those other things will actually fall into place. So, you asked the question about being aware. I think it opens up the door for us to actually pay attention to the real problem or what's going on in hand. Because if you really think about it on the brain side of the scope, that our brain actually deals with thousands and thousands of bits of information every single second. Okay, but it cannot really go through all of that information. It has to filter that information, right? So let's just say that it can actually accept 32,000 bits. So basically it filtered through all those millions of bits of information just to give you 32 bits. So for example, you may have said, well, you know what, I'm going to get this car. No one else has this car around. As soon as you get it, everybody has it, right? Because your brain has distorted and filtered out that information in the beginning. But now all of a sudden, it unlocked that information right back to the forefront of your mind. So when we are aware of these things, we're starting to put focus on of what we're actually talking about right now. So that gives us a step, so to speak, to actually deal with the issues at hand as well. So I think this conversation is extremely important for us to be aware and to act on it as well as you're doing so right now.
I love that. Paying attention. Anyone else?
Could that also be being connected with yourself and knowing yourself?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we don't pay attention to what's going on with us.
Yes. Yes.
And that's where it begins. It begins with us. Having awareness, it like I said, begins with us, and it opens the door. It creates the platform for change. As long as we are unaware or in the dark or asleep, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what needs to be changed. We don't know what's going on around us. We don't know what's going on within us because we're asleep, unless we, have dreams, but still. But awareness, being awake, having discussions like this creates the platform for change. So there's no excuse, there's no reason that if a person wants change or wants to become better or do more or just know, there was no excuse. Awareness is so powerful and so needed. It puts me in a mindset, and sorry, I'm going to the Bible. You should know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. It doesn't set you free, it makes you free. That's if you allow it to make you free. So that's what awareness brings to the table.
Love it, love it.
And I
Robin
think awareness, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say a quote, Robin Sharma. I love the quote, and I've been posting it. Awareness precedes change. Love it. Go ahead, Dr. Otoya.
So I think, like we were all saying, awareness brings knowledge. And an example of that is, you know, everyone always talks about do affirmations. It helps you. It doesn't, but no one explained why. No one says we have 80,000 thoughts a day and 80% of those are negative, and the only way you can change those thoughts are by affirmations. That knowledge changed how I did those, because then I understood the importance of why you're doing that. Because if I don't want 80% of my thoughts to be negative, I need to replace those with good thoughts. And it's just that knowledge and that awareness to be able to understand so I can implement it. That to me is what awareness really looks like.
Love it. Anyone else?
If I may, I think also that it's a mindset that we have to educate the public, that they need to pivot and have that mindset of being acknowledging and accepting that this is real. This is a real problem that we need to deal with. And then we need the ability to communicate it as best we can. And I think that we're doing it on Zoom, on social media. We're using the internet, the World Wide Web, and we need our voices to be heard. And I think that awareness, we can multiply and exponentially get more and more people involved by simply being visible and having these kind of roundtables and available to the public.
Lola says something. I also believe that there is a willingness of responsibility with awareness. It's identifying. Absolutely. You know what the scary part is when I was growing up, implementing our knowledge around the awareness. The scary part growing up for me, I'm going to share a little bit, just a secret, just a little secret, y'all, just for you here. I was afraid to read the Bible because I felt and I heard, you know, when you're young and you have these grown-ups talking, they said, if you read the Bible, now you are responsible to act a different way. So I didn't want to act differently. So I didn't want to read the Bible because I didn't want to see it. But isn't it true for today? If we don't admit that there's an issue, is there an issue? No. We don't need to change the way that we act or talk or what we need to say because, you know, we put blinders on. That's very.
When we have the information, we do have to change up the narrative now, because now you can't sit and say, well, you know, I didn't know that's what was going on with me. I didn't know that information. I didn't know that service was available. Well, the service is available and things are here for you. So now you have to change, but sometimes it's comfortable in that dysfunction. Sometimes it's comfortable there. And when we get the information to do better, we got to do some work and we have to make some changes, but we don't realize those changes are positive. And when positivity is, you know, infectious as well as negative things, and we can change the whole atmosphere around us to have a more positive, you know, home life, work life, you know, just changing how you're operating can change the narrative around you. But when we know more, we have to do better. And yes, we do have to act a little differently. That's for the positive benefit of ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to be aware of the connection that we have with other people. That's also part of the awareness, is not only being self-aware, but realizing that what we do affects other people. And to stop and think about that before saying the first thing that comes out of your mouth, or doing something that may not be seen as polite or what have you.
Love it, love it. I have a question because that brings something to mind. I was listening to a sermon on yesterday, and the pastor talked about there's a difference between skeleton and bones. The difference? Skeletons, the bones are still connected. Right? The bones were scattered all over the place. And so when we talk about connection, Are we really connected? I know someone talked about being connected to yourself, but are we connected with ourselves? And how are we connected to ourselves? So I thought it was very interesting about the skeleton and the bones and how disconnected we can truly be when there's no thought behind it. And thought starts with awareness. Anyone else? We are very close to time. And I know this is a holiday for you as well, but I definitely want to make sure that our voices are heard. Lola and Cindy and Susan, I just want to make sure that you have, you don't have anything to say. I don't want to leave you out.
I think another thing here is that, yes, it's great for our voices to be heard. It's great for us to actually have these roundtable conversations, but it's also better to bring some resources, some tools, some tips, some things that people can use so they can actually get out of their situations, because most of the time the caregivers feel isolated, as well as those who are actually dealing with the mental illness. Out of the 7.7 billion people that's walking on the planet, they feel like they're alone. So we want to make sure that we actually have some type of tips, resources, tools, or books or something for them to go off of, so they can actually feel like they actually are a part of a supporting community, that they can get through this, that they're not alone, and they will survive this. And I truly believe that you have survived 100% of the things that tried to take you out already. So that's a great track record, right? So everything that you've actually gone through that tried to take you out has failed, miserably failed. So that means that anything that's set before you, you can actually accomplish. So we want to make sure that we bring some resources to the table to make sure that that gives them more amplification to know that they will get through this as well. Anyone?
Awesome. Thank you.
I would love to share something that I learned, and I pass it on in every one of my courses and programs to help us just be for a moment. Maybe we could just do it together.
Yes.
Would that be okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Just stop. Take a deep breath, maybe a couple, and observe these 5 senses. You're going to do these right now. You're going to see 5 things in your surroundings and name them to yourself. Look around you and name 5 things that are in your vision field. Now take another deep breath and notice 4 things that you can touch, and touch them. They're in your field. Touch them and name them as you touch them. Now I'd like you to stop and take another deep breath and listen, really listen to 3 things that you can hear in your surroundings. Could be as simple as the buzz on your computer. Another deep breath. 2 things that you can smell. Maybe your own perfume. I can smell the ocean. And 1 thing now that you can taste. Could be something as simple as your water. Another deep breath. For those 5 senses, all you've been able to do is focus on those 5 senses. So whenever you are feeling stressed or overwhelmed, I call it my stop and feel meditation. Just stop whatever you're doing and do those things. I tell you, it's an amazing way to just bring yourself back to you and proceed.
Awesome. Thank you. And actually, I was going to put a video on for that, but I prefer the live and the real. Thank you so much for bringing that to us. For me, I'm going to go ahead and share. I know did mention we're going to do a couple of exercises. And for me, it's about intentional breathing. I mean, yes, we know that breathing is supposed to be automatic. But every time, I don't know if you watch scary movies, every time you watch a scary movie and someone gets scared, what do? They hold their breath, right? They hold it. They don't want to be, they want no one to find them. They hide in the closet and they hold their breaths thinking that if they breathe, they're going to be caught. Well, growing up with, my brother, the situation that I had at home, every time something got tough, I held my breath. I held it. And so, and you find that you're holding your breath when you have to gasp for air. So one thing that I realized about intentional breathing is that you can do it anywhere. You can be driving and you're like, oh, I need a moment, pull to the side and do your intentional breathing. You can be in the closet, you feel some type of way, do your intentional breathing there. If you're sitting in an office at your desk, do your intentional breathing there. And breathing intentionally relieves the stress. It reduces your anxiety. It helps with blood pressure. It helps clear your mind. And some people, I've taught where, before you even pray, have an intentional breathing moment. Because if your mind is all clouded and all clogged up, what are you going to pray for? You have no clue. You're just talking, venting, throwing things out there. But how many of us know when we pray for something that we really want, we receive? But if you're just mumbo and jumbo, then it's not going to happen. So before we do this breathing exercise, and it's simple, go ahead and grab a glass of water. I haven't seen any, and I've been looking at y'all. I've been looking at every box. Grab some water and take a couple of sips, please. Take a couple of sips. Yeah, drink some. All right, now, Helene, Susan, Lola, Cindy, Kathy, and Sharonda, I don't see you, but I'm a trust that you're drinking some water right about now. Okay. And if you're sitting, just, put your hands on your knees, palm up, feet on the ground. And if you're already on the ground, if you can sit maybe Indian style, straighten up your back a little bit. Let's just move our heads to the left a couple of times. And then move your neck to the right a couple of times. We're going to move our shoulders back a couple of times. And we're going to move our shoulders forward a couple of times. All right, let's close our eyes for a moment. Now imagine the space or place that brings you calm. That when you see it or think about it, all your struggles and troubles just kind of goes away. Now we're going to breathe through our nose. We're going to inhale through our nose, but we're going to exhale through our mouths. And before we do that, we're going to place a hand on our chest and place a hand on your belly. Because when you inhale, you want to make sure you kind of push your belly out a little bit because you want to fill up your belly with oxygen. And when you exhale, you want to make sure your stomach goes in because you want to take out all the stuff that doesn't belong in your body. Dr. Otoya talked about the why. Well, that's the why. Intentional breathing makes sense. All right, here we go. Inhale, 1, 2, keep inhaling. 3, hold it. 1, 2, exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice that you're exhaling longer because we got to blow all that nonsense out of us. all the negativity, all the stuff that's no good. Statistically, and the facts say that when you exhale, you are removing the toxins out of your body. So here we go again. We're going to inhale in 1, 2, 3, hold it. 1, 2, exhale, breathe out your mouth, out, 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 out. And one more time, just because. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, hold it. Let all that good stuff go all to your toes, wiggle your fingers, and exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Open your eyes. Thank you. Thank you. So we are very, very near to the end of our conversation for today. Have you had a good time so far? Yes. The day is still young. That's why I say so far. The day is still young. So I know there is a form, Jay, that you wanted to share. And we're going to give you a few minutes to just answer some of those questions. Jay's going to drop it in the chat. Hi, Helene. Oh. Susan says the conversation has been so enlightening for me. Thank you, Susan. All right, Mr. J. Johnson just dropped a link. If we can take shouldn't take you more than a minute. I believe there are 5 or 6 questions, yes or no, multiple choice. If you can just take a moment and complete that questionnaire. Can we play some music while we do that? I just want to share while Jay is putting up the form, another one of my favorite writers is James Baldwin. And he has a quote that says, "Not everything that is faced can be changed." But we all know that nothing can be changed if it's not faced. We've learned that today. I'm gonna go ahead and take a moment myself and fill out this form. just wanted to, I see that Kate is heading out, but before she heads out, I just wanted to, Kate, can you share with us what you can offer our the individuals in the room today,
I
our
believe it
friends
was
and family who joined us today?
I believe it was my 5 days of joyful, mindful happiness, mindfulness. So it's 5 days of, it was a virtual retreat that I created with some very good friends 2 years ago. And I'm offering it to everybody here for peacefulness, joy, mindfulness. And yeah, I think Myrtha has the link. You'll get it. Please enjoy the work of these other 4 beautiful women and myself. We just put our hearts and souls into it to offer joy and peace to whoever. And it takes like an hour a day for 5 days. You'll love it, I promise. And I'm sorry I have to go, but I'm doing an interview for my own podcast. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. Dr. Toya, you want to share what your giveaway is today?
Oh, I don't even remember, but I think it was a session. You could get a session, but then I was also going to give out that the path to happiness, what I had talked about where you plant your own seeds and what categories, like that would be for everybody. That's free, but I wanted to be able to give that to individuals as a tool to be able to help them.
Awesome, thank you. Now I do have, after we get off today, everyone here is going to receive tips, some resources, PDF in that version. You're also going to receive the gifts and offers that's going to be shared here today. So thank you, Dr. Otoyo. We will have that information out to everyone here. Beth, did you have something to share?
Yes, I think for every one of us, I have an ebook, a digital ebook that is how to find yourself again. I know it seems like, well, that's for other people, but you know what? It's for us. It's for us too, as caregivers, and some of us that are dealing with depression and anxiety ourselves. And then for the raffle, I'm providing my copy of my autographed book, I Just Want to Be Happy Again.
Awesome, thank you. Sonia, I'm going in what I see in front of me, who I see in front of me, Sonia.
Yes, what I am offering is a free session. You can reach out to me either by going onto my website, SoniaReneeEnterprises.com, or reach out to, I'll put it in here, info@SoniaReneeEnterprises. Just offering a free session, and we may even continue to work together if we find that it's a great fit at a very much discounted price.
Thank you, thank you. Miriam. Oh, where'd she go? I lost her.
I had 2 books. The Walls Around Me, which is about the caregivers stories, and some of them are on here today, and Daily Dose of Declaration, which was put together actually to help individuals battle depression and suicide. And it's a daily reading. Some verses are from the Bible, some are just verses that that person liked and what they think about it, what they thought about it. So I got these 2 books.
Thank you. Patrice?
Good afternoon, everybody. You can connect with me at the sssmovement.org. I'm offering a free session so we can sit down and talk about how we can get you to where you want to be. If you are experiencing burnout, I want to talk about some different resources that can help you to work through your burnout with my 9 wheels of wellness with a twist for that. Also, today I am offering for those who want to say, hey, I want to go and, wait, can y'all see me? Oh, let me back it up a little bit. Maybe not. All right. Here's the fun of technology. Did y'all see it? It just did it right there for me. I want to offer you the book, Trauma and Their Cousins. This book does help you to actually walk through your traumas. It tells you, for those who don't realize you may have had a trauma, what the traumas are, how to walk through it, and how to pick the correct counselor, life coach, mental health mentor, whomever you may need, who's the right one for you. And I'll drop my information in the link.
Yes, yes, and don't fear if you can't grab the information in the link. You will receive an email following up from this platform, so no fear. Linda.
Hi, how are you? I have a 90-day coaching program, Get Your Life Back into Balance. And I'm offering a free discovery call so we can see how we can work together, what your goals are, what you're struggling with. So that's a free session. So I'll put the link in the chat for that.
Awesome, thank you. Did I miss anything, Mr. J. Johnson? Did I miss anyone?
Hey, I would offer business coaching as well. If you are looking to generate some extra income or take your business to the next level, I can show you how to create offers and also show you how to write a signature talk presentation and things of that nature. So I can offer a 30-minute session as well, and I'll put that link in the chat.
Yes, yes, all of that is good. Thank you so very much for joining us today. Even our speakers and our panelists, thank you for being committed to this cause and coming here and taking time out of your schedule to do this, to have a conversation, and I really, really, really appreciate each and every one of you who showed up today, because this is where it starts. This is where it starts. Now, where do we go from there? Well, you've heard it. We've had the discovery calls. We have some sessions to pathway to your own personal happiness. We have daily dose of declaration. Don't take that lightly. It goes hand in hand with the affirmations and the state of mind that you are. So start with that as well. And a lot of these are free. Take advantage of the free. You have how many individuals sharing free today? Go for the free and then get back to you and say, okay, well, what do I need to go next? What do I need to do next? You might want to work on yourself, but you can't work everything all at once, right? So take the free and then ask yourself, what's next? And that's where it all starts. The conversation leads to action. Or the conversation leads to becoming even more aware, and then that leads into action. But whatever you do, walk away today with, yes, I may not have had all my questions answered, but I'm gonna start with what I did receive. And I'm also going to share the connection with all the panelists so that if you wish to talk, you do have someone to reach out to. Lola says she has a free 20-day reflection challenge I'd like to offer. And yes, we would definitely take it. Remember, we all need someone. What's a trigger for me, one of my pet peeves is, because I'm a life strategist, but I need someone. And so many people are offering their products and services and they don't have that, someone that's offering their products and services to them. And that's an issue because you can't grow, you can't connect, you can't build communities that way. And we definitely can continue conversations. So I'm saying again, take the free and go from there. You may not have free all your life and for, a lot of areas in your life, but when it is offered and if it can help you get started, take it. Now, let me follow up by saying this. After the free, you may have to spend a little something to keep moving forward. So don't shut the door on that one either. Yes, we can get a lot of things for free, but sometimes to elevate, you may have to pay a little something extra. And that means saying yes to yourself. What are we going to do? We're going to say yes to ourselves. I'm going to open up. Go ahead, everyone, unmute. Share with me what you're walking away with today. all at once. No, I'm kidding.
I'll go. I want to say thank you so much to each of you for providing all of your gifts and your knowledge and your insight. What we talked about, the key points, the questions that were asked based around awareness, mental health, well-being, mental illness. It's interesting because someone asked me, how did you get into, the field of behavioral health? And for me, when my brother passed away, I suffered like a very traumatic experience. I didn't know how to cope with that. And I struggled for years feeling like I couldn't identify what I was feeling. And so when I actually wrote a book in his honor, I learned later on that it was a trauma-informed tool. I still didn't know what that meant. So wanting to gain knowledge around, my own well-being and being able to be equipped to teach others, I honestly believe that when you all talk about the knowledge and the awareness, it rings so well from someone who was once in a place who didn't understand, who is now holding the capacity to understand and want to be a student of what it truly looks like to take care of ourselves full-roundedly. It is a very beautiful experience to be able to share space with people who are constantly advocating, not only on their lived experience, but experiences that they may have with family members or, what have you. It's a really beautiful, eye-opening thing to see. And I want to say thank you for staying committed and making this your life mission to be committed to change our communities in this way.
Thank you. Anyone else? Colleen, Susan?
For me, it's the platform to be vulnerable. The one thing that I've learned is anytime you become vulnerable, you open up the platform for others to feel vulnerable and feel like it's not just them, because we assume so much in life, and when we're allowed to be vulnerable and expose what we truly feel and what is truly going on, you then realize that so many people are fighting the same battle and that you can help each other. So I'm just grateful for you for providing this platform for vulnerability. That is the biggest way to help anybody, is by being vulnerable and providing the safe space.
Love it. Love it.
I think for me, this provides a sense of support, knowing that there's a lot of people that are going through some things, whether it's in a different category. It may be depression, it may be anxiety, it may be schizophrenia, whatever the case may be, but these caretakers are still sharing the same task. And that is to actually get not only themselves healed, but those that are around them healed, and to get the word out so other people can actually be affected by it. So we're still planting seeds. And of course, as much as we want to plant seeds, understand that the harvest will be plenty as long as we're continuing to sow the seed. Like the seed sowing sister.
Love it.
I just want to say that I'm taking away being empowered and enlightened. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. It's the end of the school year, and although we are off today, there's so many things personally I need to take care of, worried about family members, but I have to remember I have to take care of myself first, putting myself first. Like I think Linda gave the reference to when, you put the oxygen on yourself, give yourself the oxygen first. So I can't wait to get a lot of these free offerings and read up on some things and just learn to take time to relax, relate, release, and breathe. Thank you all. The panel was wonderful. Thank you for all your information.
And we thank you for being here. You could have spent your last 3 hours anywhere else, but you came to the discussion, you came to the table. Thank you for sharing space with us.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Linda.
For me, this was very enlightening because I'm that individual that just constantly go. And this session has made me stop and really think about, where am I mentally? Where is my mental health? How is Susan doing? So I want to thank everyone because, like I say, it was very enlightening for me, extremely.
Well, for me, and this may sound dramatic, but oh well, I can be dramatic, but I mean it. I'm just saying. As a deep feeler, I feel things deeply. So for me, this gave me life. It was a breath of fresh air, a breath of life. You know, you go through things in life, you experience things in life, and when you're in the middle of it and in the middle of that dark season and all that craziness and the intense pain and stress or whatever, you're like, what the heck? What is it all for? This moment right here, for me, was the culmination of like, okay, this is what it was all for. And it's only the beginning. So this breathes like I don't know, I'm so excited on the inside. I'm so giddy because it's like, it makes sense. I found my place. I found my moment. I understand a little bit better now what I've experienced and what I've encountered with my baby and even with myself, that, okay, this is it. And to find a group of people and we're speaking the same language, but we're all bringing to the table and to this environment our own experiences, our own voice, our own flavor, our own vibe, but it's all in the same, motion. It's a doggone beautiful thing to me. It really is. So this is life for me. This has breathed life on the inside of me, and I'm just so excited. And again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And I'm gonna try not to bug you too much, Myrtha, but this is something that has to gain momentum. It has to.
Thank you. Well, while you try not to bug her, I am going to bug her. He said it this way. For me, this gave me, you know how when you first light a fire and then the people will say blowing a little bit, that's what this did for me today. It gave me a chance to blow on it a lot more and really share not just what I walked in here knowing, but y'all gave me so much stuff. I got notes all around here. Like a kid, how you write on the side of your paper and on the back. And yeah, I did all of that. Miss Linda, I want to thank you so much when you talked about the reading piece. That really gave me a lot. So I'm gonna kind of go around in my little way. Miss Linda gave me a lot about the reading. I'd never thought about it, but that was something that when my grandmother, when she was going through her dementia, that the nurse she had would bring in books. And I guess my grandmother did not like what she was reading. So my grandma was like, I ain't really feeling you. But, it was something that she was trying to do to make a difference. I love how Dr. Atoya, and if I said this wrong, please forgive me, charges to what I'm saying, not my heart. But I love how when you talked about that mindfulness piece and seeing mindfulness, not just as, am I good, but really valuing what's going on with you. I really loved how you shared that. Miss Beth, your story, honey, you got me here. I had to get myself together with that one. You got me, sis, you got me. Because I think for so many people don't realize how deep postpartum can be. And I think what really hit me is because with my wave of clientele I have right now, I have a lot of postpartum mommies. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people realize how serious that is. And, a lot of people dismiss it and it's just hurting. No, honey, it gets way deeper and it gets so much more seriously in it. And I just appreciate you bringing out that piece. Because, a lot of people don't really think of it that way. It's just like, oh, but she's just going through this. And no, I need you to hear me. And, that was your cry of help, to hear me. I just love Jay because Jay is Jay. Jay brought in some good stuff. And I thank you for being the man in the room to give me some skills on how I need to handle this at my house. I appreciate you. Miss Sonia, you just gave me life. I appreciate you, just the openness, the vulnerability with your situation with your daughter and just sharing it because, to hear from a parent's view, I always refer to them because I know of that service and how well they do, but to hear from a parent's view goes, all right, I'm doing the right thing as a practitioner here. That's what's working. And it's just a beautiful thing. I thank all of y'all for taking the time to come and just let me do what I like to do, run my mouth. But I truly want to thank Ms. Myrtha because Ms. Myrtha, you gave me a platform today to just come and share something that many people don't realize. We had a pandemic in the natural, but this was the pandemic that has been brewing for years and nobody wanted to talk about it. This was the silent pandemic that once the pandemic of COVID and everybody else showed up and the monkeypox and whoever else is out there showed up, this is the one that people really saying, okay, now I need to pay more attention to this. And I just thank you for taking the time and giving us the platform and having the conversation and being that voice that says, I don't want this to go unheard again. So I just thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out and listening and sharing and lending your voice to the room. Whether it was your voice, your comments, whatever, everyone was a part of it. It was a great conversation. What I got out of it is don't be dismissive to yourself and don't be dismissive to other people. If other people are going, don't just say, oh, that's just how they are. Maybe there's something else you need to start paying attention to because that's a red flag. So that being dismissive to yourself and others, I think I really got out of that. And Ms. Myrtha, just thank you for when you sent out the call, I just said yes. And without even thinking, but I'm glad it was meant for me to be here, but I didn't know why I said yes, but I'm happy to be a part and lend my part of what I do in the world to the room. And I'm thankful for all those who showed up.
Yeah.
Oh, my turn. Thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate hearing all the stories, learning how the brain really works.
Yeah.
And really know, because I do self-care day, but I need to do better self-care days. Self-care days is not just doing your nails, doing a massage. It's more taking care of me, taking care of I.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Anyone else? Anyone else before we close out? Well, I'm getting teary already. Ladies and gents, I mean, my heart is full. I am honored. I am humbled. I love the conversation we had today. And it's really a conversation because it's a give and take, right? It's not just I'm going to have a communication piece. I'm going to throw a communication piece in there and going about my business. You ladies and gents truly had a conversation with one another. And this is above and beyond what I had expected. And I am so grateful, so touched, so grateful. And yes, I'm going to start planning for 2023. So when I send out the requests, the invites, let me know if you're in. I know Ms. Beth has been with me since last year. It started last year and it did start from the book, The Walls Around Me. She said yes. Her and Haley said yes right away. And so it brought into the second year. And so next year will be our third annual. Sonia, did you say something?
I'm in for next year.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you. And that's it for today. I'm giving you the rest of your day back. Thank you so much. I can't stop saying thank you enough. Thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everybody. Or
Thank you.
with the rest of
wait. Kathy has
Yes.
a hand.
No, I was just saying, wishing everybody, enjoying the rest of your day. That's it.
All right.
So who's going to leave first?
Enjoy your day, everyone.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I got to do my motivational quote at 11:45 Central Standard Time. So,
okay.
Thank you. It was great. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Beth. Awesome.